but Rey's on the side of the dark and Kylo's on the side of the snow. So what? I think it's just a visual aesthetic. I don't think it's that much thought was put into it.
I don't know.
Or
Maybe
like
crevices
say,
are dark.
oh, you see the ground where there's little cracks of red coming out of it. That's the scars on Kylo Ren's mentality. That's his mental state.
All right, guys, let's get started. Thanks, everyone, for joining this wonderful Wednesday in the evening on the Eastern Seaboard. And boy, we got a full room tonight. We might be actually getting another one, so I don't know if I have enough space for that, but we're going to introduce everyone from left to right just so we all know who everyone is. On the first is Shiny. He's our resident Star Wars expert, and he knows everything from colon to kyber crystals, I guess. Thanks for coming, Shiny.
It's a pleasure.
And here next to him is Mr. LIteratureDevil. Whether he's blocked or down or disconnected, he always comes back. And he's
can't stop me. I never ever stop.
He was the former biggest YouTuber on this podcast.
Well, okay then. Yeah, anything related to storytelling, or I think comic books is now his big thing. He's our man. So thank you for coming, LIteratureDevil. We're going to skip Mr. Shadiversity because he's a bit busy, but he'll be right back. And we're jumping over to Evan. Evan is I guess we could say our movie expert. He's everything about movie stories and not necessarily movie making, but stories regarding movies, the quality they're in. I don't know. What else is there that Evan doesn't know? I couldn't tell you. But there's so much he does. And it's always a joy to have him on. So thanks, Evan, for being here.
Yeah, glad to be on.
Just a fountain of knowledge.
There we go. And then, of course, we have Glib. He's actually in the movie industry. So he's kind of like the Ken to Evan's Ryu, I guess. Sort of knows each other. Yeah, they're just butting heads all the time. But,
perfectly balanced.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a good way for Glib.
Yeah, I'm always glad to talk about this because this is the group of people that care about quality and they care about the product, and that's what I care about. Otherwise, I'd give up and I'd move to Wyoming or something.
And of course, we have to introduce Shad, who's just presently away from the mic.
I think he just got back. He's on meeting.
I just got back.
Hey, how's it going, Shad?
Just in time.
How are you guys? It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. And if you don't know who Shad is, check out his channel. It's in the link description.
How do you not know who Shad is?
Hey, you never know. You never know. I'm not that popular. I could only have a select few of like 10 people that only watch me, and they're like, who are these people? I have no idea. So anyway,
did we borrow the big guns for this video?
This is arguably a big gun. Yes, I would say. Shad has already done an analysis of the fight room scene. If you want to check that out, go on his channel. It was about 4 months ago, maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah, and it goes for about an hour.
Yeah, it deserves a few.
There's a lot.
It deserves a few days of just looking at every single choreography. What was going through this designer's mind? What were the actors thinking? I want to know the props. I want to know all those things going on.
The actor was thinking, okay, so someone's going to kick someone, and then 3 people are going to get kicked. Logic.
Oh my goodness. There are layers to that fight scene on how bad it is. My goodness.
Okay, Kylo's going to stick his lightsaber in the ground, then they're going to attack that. This guy's going to throw his weapon away before going to get killed.
It's a ball. It's a fun ball, and we all enjoyed it, and for different reasons, of course. Now, the person who really likes it, and that would be Mr. AT Chat. We've been covering his videos for the past week. He is a really strong enthusiast of, I think, everything Star Wars, even more than Shiny. I think he sees everything through rose-tinted glasses, and it can do no wrong, except maybe Episode 9. I think he had some criticism about that. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. We might get there. It might be interesting.
Well, if you like The Force Awakens and you like The Last Jedi, they usually hate the Rise of Skywalker for some reason. I guess it didn't make him feel smart enough, or there was not enough Reylo. One of those things.
Okay, well, he loves everything Last Jedi. The fight scene in quotation marks of between Luke and Kylo was, I don't even know if that was a fight scene. Can you call that a fight scene? Was it?
It's trying to stab a ghost violently. I don't think it's a fight.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to describe, but he took an entire video and talked about it. We covered that. Very interesting stuff. I love the symbolism of the was it the foot moving an inch? That was That was deep. That was really meaningful.
The arc of his wild swing represents the arc of his humanity. We went from good to evil. That's what that represents. And
but one he legitimately pulled. One that he legitimately pulled was, the ground, the red cracks in the ground simulates his scarred personality.
Something along those lines.
Makes sense.
More colorful than that, I think, though. But that's pretty accurate. Okay. Already we have a super chat. Thank you, Mr. Punish Berserker. AT is an enthusiast of eating paint chips. I don't know. I think he's pretty honest with himself. I don't think he needs any external input. I think he's already on the board.
Good old AT
If
chat.
it had Star Wars written on it, I'm sure it'd eat.
This is possible. Okay, let's get started, guys. We have 9 minutes to go, and I think we're going to have a good few hours of this.
You know what's fantastic? The Praetorian Guard battle. An 8-on-2 fight between elite warriors and two extremely powerful force users. Beyond the outstanding set design...
Said nobody ever. You know what's fantastic? This horrible fight scene.
Is this like The Room? It's so amazing. It's like The Room. It's so bad. It's good.
So I don't know who this AT guy is. No, like this isn't personal, mate. But we're looking at your opinions here from a more objective lens. So I always feel like I need to get that out of the way because already off the bat I disagree. But was the name of this video like on the thumbnails? Did that actually say deep dive?
Yes.
Because
he
can. How long is the video?
9 minutes. 31 seconds.
That's not deep. That is incredibly shallow.
The shallowest deep dive you've ever taken.
That's a baby
head open on the
I'm not sure that qualifies for a deep dive, but we'll see, I suppose.
Well, your standards might be a bit higher, sir, but yeah.
Well, this is a guy who used the word kendo to describe the fight between Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker, and didn't explain anything about kendo. He just dropped the word and then put in a clip of people fighting in this kendo style, and just left it there as if we're supposed to fill in the blanks. So that's what the deep dive is to AT.
You forgot the link to the website, the kendo website.
We're supposed to go do our homework to explain his video.
Oh, goodness. See, I've actually done kendo in the past. I went to Japan and I studied a bit of it. So if he does bring up kendo, okay.
Well, let's just actually ask you, does kendo have anything to do with how we see choreography in The Last Jedi?
No.
Okay.
No.
Are you trying to tell? Okay. So Shadiversity, are you trying to tell me that there is no kendo style that has wild swings that are very anyone can block?
Well, here's the secret about kendo, right? It's a sport. It's actually not a martial arts. They have set, legal zones to hit, and it's point based, and they rarely focus on blocking. There are some good things that you can pick up in kendo. They have some good training styles and stuff, and some good drills you can learn, and they do develop good speed. But that's about it. Okay, if you try and sword fight with just pure kendo, technique, you're gonna get trashed. Like I've sparred with people who've done just kendo, and they always leave their legs open because they never focus on blocking the legs because that's not a legal target zone in the kendo formula. Kendo is far more like fencing, like Olympic sport fencing, than it is like actual real sword fighting. And so there are some severe limitations in it when you try and apply it into sword fighting form. I mean, they only have one main stance that they use. And if you contrast that with Kenjutsu, the actual martial arts style of Japanese sword play, they have several different sword, stances because you need to adapt. That's what sword fighting is. You need to change the sword for your opponent. You don't have this one static thing. And so it's funny how people always default to kendo as the gold standard of a sword fighting martial arts. It's like it's not really a martial art.
So
you know what we should do?
So Kylo Ren was playing a sport with Luke Skywalker.
So is the suffix do and the suffix jutsu, what's the difference between those two?
If you're talking about the target hit zones, and so the door is when you target the stomach, I'm pretty sure. Men is when you target the head, and so they generally you scream the title, like you go "Man!" when you're hitting for the head or "Door!" and I forget what the wrist hits. So the target zones is the gut basically. It's not really upper torso. It's mainly the mid section, and then headshots they love the headshots, and also wrist shots as well. Those are the main target zones from memory. It's a couple of years ago.
So that's what Yahiko was doing when he was he had his own episode in Rurouni Kenshin, because he was setting up his own little target. He was shouting "men" over and over again. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and they scream it when they land a hit. They go like "Man!" And it's interesting. Rurouni Kenshin, love Rurouni Kenshin, by the way.
No, so do I. One more top 5 at least.
Yeah, the combat style that the school that's the sword that does not harm thing. It's like that they were trying to imply this was the original form of the beginning method of kendo, essentially. That's the impression I got, especially with like the style that they were working with and things. Though in actual combat, then they just it's all anime flashiness.
I was about to ask what it's closest to, meaning Star Wars style fighting, but I really have no idea whether that's applicable to actual sport or traditional fighting or fencing.
Well, if you were to get 2 mentally handicapped people that only had one leg, blindfold them, and then give them swords, you might get a close approximation as to the level of, sword fighting form that we see in The Last Jedi.
Well, is that why this whole fight scene is fantastic? Because apparently it's fantastic. Apparently it's the best fight scene anyone has ever done.
No.
Oh, did you know, Shadiversity, did you know that this third room scene, is actually, did you know this is this is apparently the sexiest scene in all of Star Wars? Did you know that? We've gone through so many defenses, so many things about this movie. We could just tell you for days.
What about every shot of Watto? Those are pretty sexy.
Oh, well, that Watto is, he's Watto, so he gets a free pass everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
Oh, Geeksley's in the chat. Again, like this is the second time I've seen him here.
Hello, Geetsleys. Good to have you.
One thing would be great is to get AT-AT chat and Shad in the same discussion.
Well,
and just like the rest of us just stay quiet and just watch what happens.
I would do that. Conversation.
I'd just be in the audience.
We just watch the scene going on and just let it unfold.
Well, after this video, I will message you on Twitter. I'll say, "Hey, man, we love your videos. We'd love to have you on. It'd be great to have you talk with us."
We really, really love him. That's why we cover him so much.
Yeah, we're doing 2 weeks worth. So, hey, man, we love your videos. We hope you get a little boost. Bravo. Keep it up. Okay, let's keep going.
We're fans, AT-AT Chan.
For this sequence, the camera movement, the music, the way it all ebbs and flows is worth talking about. Which brings us to today's video.
Okay, so when it comes to the camera movement, I can definitely say it's very uninspired and it's very it's all right. It's not the most inventive camera movement ever. It's very standard panning and movement.
Yeah, and it's also like the camera movement can enhance the enjoyment of a fight scene, but it's not the most crucial part, and it's not the key point you would be assessing to determine the overall quality. It's certainly a complementary part. If you want to see a good fight scene that works with the camera brilliantly, it's the Witcher fight scene in Blaviken, and I have done a review of that one as well. And it's not perfect by any means, that fight scene, but the camera work is really good. And so if you want to compare good camera work, have a look at that. And the throne and fight scene, it's got nothing compared to the Witcher, fight scene in Blaviken, because it's just it's just very standard stuff. So I'm not sure why he thinks that's so phenomenal when it's really not. And the music, again, that's something that's like, of course it's there to enhance it, but you would think that the most crucial part to determine if a fight scene is good or not would be the choreography. And I'm interested that he didn't even mention that.
He didn't even substantiate. He just said these things are amazing. So
I thought that was the last video too. This is amazing. It's all awesome. This is why. And so things are not actually in the movie.
Be good to know. Yeah, he should say, "Why is it good? Tell us why."
This fight scene doesn't even help you story wise, because what's the end result? of them fighting. They get to live. Like, can we just skip to the end? Because usually when you have a good fight scene, things unfold as they fight. Because a good fight scene is supposed to move the story along. This fight scene didn't really move the story along. We already knew that they're working together, and they banded together to defeat Snoke. And what's the meaning throughout this fight scene? They just fight and then they win. Like, we know they're going to.
Well,
Nothing really happens.
I think most people say that, like, you think that Rey and Kylo are going to team up, and then it subverts you at the end. So it's like, in the moment, you think that they're gonna like become a pair, and then after that, like, Kylo chooses not to. So it's like,
well, yeah. They could have just had no guards in here. Like, they could have just taken out this fight scene altogether and just had them face off with Snoke, and then they kill Snoke, and then they could have had that moment at the end of that fight scene. It would have been the exact same thing. The fighting with the guards helped the story and movie in no way.
I just have to question it as well, because why are the guards now fighting Kylo? Like, because their boss is now dead. He's now their boss.
I would assume that they're apparently, for some reason, really, really loyal. They don't explain why. The only assumption you can come to is that they're really loyal.
Well, honestly, this is something I've kind of stood by. I mean, like, picture like the vice president and someone who's working with him, like, kill the president of the United States. It's like, you'd imagine Secret Service is going to attack the vice president.
This isn't America. This is an evil empire.
True enough, but it's still, I still think there's like a little bit of a reason for that to happen. But at the same time, I'm like, I do get that. It's like, they should.
Yeah, but if they kill Kylo, what's gonna fucking happen? Everyone's gonna be out of a job.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well,
I think we'll divert to Hux at that point.
I'd see it.
Hux.
Maybe they're just going murder Hux.
They just kill everybody.
Let's go kill him.
Just kill everybody. There's no one to say stop, so just go on a rampage.
Go throughout the ship, just murder everyone they find.
That'd be a much more interesting story.
Giant ship, just like 6 guys take a corridor. They just start murdering everyone in the halls. No, that'd be insane. Whew, yeah, that would be brutal. Anyway,
just be a scene where it's like Praetorian guards. Cool.
Oy. Okay, that's sad.
Why was that cool? Like the Knights of Ren. Cool. Why was that in the script? Who the fuck thought that would be a good idea to put in the script of Rise of Skywalker?
They added them in and they forgot all about them afterwards. And then they said, okay, we need to add in Knights of Ren.
Oh, we need to add a reminder.
Ryan Johnson just pretended they didn't exist. And then JJ came back and was like, hey, what happened to my Knights of Ren? I'm bringing him back in.
And just so you remember who they are, we're going to say their name and say they're cool.
They're not going to do anything. They're just going to be cool. They're so cool. Even the stormtroopers think they're cool.
We don't even know who they are or what those names mean, but
it doesn't matter though, because they're so cool. It doesn't even matter.
We have no background on them, no history, no nothing.
That's how cool they are. It's a rule of cool. It doesn't even matter. They're so cool. They don't do anything. They don't do anything at all. They're just there. But they're just so cool.
It was totally not a missed opportunity to tell a story about all of Luke's students who decided to go to the dark side. That wouldn't.
No, that'd be ridiculous.
It would be more interesting to have like Luke's students split into 2. Like half of them became dark and followed Kylo, and the other half stayed.
Well, that would be good writing. That would be really inconsistent with what we've seen so far from these movies.
Here's the problem: if Rey can't do everything, then we can't have a movie. That's what Kathleen told me.
Pretty much.
That seems to be accurate in the way they wrote it. Yeah.
What's worrying is like it's kind of close to the truth. Like there's quotes from JJ where he was saying their intention for Rey, and they actually did this intentionally. That they wanted someone who was awesome and didn't really need to go through any growth, just was great from the get-go. And now I'm ad-libbing here. I can't remember the exact quote, but that's effectively what they were saying when I heard that.
The thing is, though, why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Well, it's a good question. You'd have to ask JJ because it's bloody stupid. But I think they just wanted to make an awesome character to show that they're awesome. And I think there are deeper intentions behind that as well. But that would just be me speculating at that point.
Imagine if instead of a woman, Rey was Steven Seagal. How would that go over?
I mean, Steven Seagal is a lot older than Rey, so I would assume some ambiguity there.
Oh Oh boy, that just changes everything, doesn't it? Okay, that's like I imagine the ponytail would still work, but everything else would just be, oh my goodness.
Don't worry, guys. They fix it in the novel. It's all fixed in the, it's all fixed in the novel and the
Novel
comics.
fix everything. We swear.
Now, I want to see a remake of this trilogy with Steven.
That'll come in 30 years with the next Star Wars special edition.
Okay, I got to read a super chat from Punished Berserker again. Thank you, sir. Now, I want to see Pence go John Wick on the SS. And if anyone who's not from the States doesn't know the SS, that's the Secret Service. Man, that would be scary as hell.
That'd be really cool, though.
He's got lightning powers.
Lightning power. Okay, yeah, we're going all over the place. Let's get back to the video, shall we?
The most best fight scene of all time by every objective metric.
The most best.
The
Okay.
throne room battle.
Joking aside, it's a sequence that has been on.
I have it on good authority that this is not a throne room battle. It's a throne womb battle. Okay? That's why The Last Jedi is the best movie ever made.
Yeah,
We don't talk about that certain
guests,
person.
okay?
Because there are 5 metaphorical
We
wombs.
don't talk about wit and folly. We just don't.
Okay, yeah. Very selective.
Because we still haven't figured out who died and why they died and who killed.
It's a very dizzying intellect time to listen to Wit and Folly videos about anything, really. The Last Jedi.
That's a reference back to the first stream I was on.
Oh, well, that sort of traumatized you for life, so we gotta, get over that.
You gotta bring back the inside jokes. You gotta bring them back.
Yeah.
I know.
Nice to
Kendo
be-
Ren is pretty good. I think that's pretty
Kendo Ren is great. I love
hilarious
Kendo
for
Ren.
me. What's that? Kendo.com,
What-
guys. That's where the answers are. Like, what?
What's kendo? Don't watch the video because he doesn't tell you. But he uses it as a very powerful pillar of his argument.
Here's a super chat from Dennis Marquez. Thank you, sir. I like to think to the Praetorian Guards as inspired by Roman Empire Praetorians. Okay, that's fine. They held a lot of power and murdered many emperors. All right, I didn't know they killed that many emperors in the Roman legion.
They did. I think there was even one time where the Praetorian Guard actually sold the crown of the emperor to the highest bidder. It was fantastic.
That's a
Yeah, and the Janissaries from the Ottoman Empire are also like that.
They would kill their own emperor?
That's what I've heard. Yeah, they had
Wow.
to be disbanded because they had too much power.
That is
Interesting.
That's scary. Okay. That would explain why
Too
they're so
dangerous.
crazy in The Last Jedi, but would be
But
nice
here's
if
the
you had
thing.
some feedback and backstory of that from JJ, but apparently not.
Again, I just want to point out that it would have been better to have, like, if the Knights of Ren or whatever were the council for Snoke or something, and then Kylo convinced them to betray Snoke or something. That would have been an interesting story. But we don't know anything about him.
Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? It would be. Hmm?
No. Sorry,
They
Kathleen.
didn't do that.
It's possible they were actually studying kendo, and that's why they all have like axes and stuff, as opposed to lightsabers.
It would have been
God.
interesting. It would have been really interesting. And because it would have been interesting, again, it would have been really inconsistent with the rest of the movies.
On my mind
Anyway.
since The Last Jedi came out. This scene is climbing the ladder of favorite lightsaber battles in the entire saga. Yeah, I think
The
it's that
entire
good.
saga.
Blade, AT-AT.
Oh, hold on. We have to talk about this blade thing
Here we
because
go.
if I'm not mistaken, this was actually the first time Star Wars has ever had any form of visual inconsistency
No one's
ever.
saying that.
There is a scene where the blade of a
Again, even if the blade doesn't disappear, he has another fucking hand where he can use to punch or grab or do fucking anything.
Exactly. There is so much wrong with this sequence right here. The fact that, okay, if the blade didn't disappear, what is he doing with it? They took it out because his hand is just there when Rey is, facing backwards towards him, that he could have just stabbed her in the back. It passes by her stomach, so he could have sliced her open. And it is retarded on so many levels. Like, there's nothing holding Rey's, lightsaber arm where it is, and she could literally just move it back and hit him in the back of the head. Like, I break this down in detail in my own review. There is so much you could do. It is one of the dumbest sequences ever. And so
The Praetorian Guards
disappear-
also look very cartoonish.
They do.
yeah, exactly. The disappearing dagger is like the steaming turd on the cake for this sequence. And like, it doesn't even if the dagger wasn't removed, it wouldn't have redeemed how horrible the sequence is. And is he trying to excuse it, saying it's the first visual inconsistency, which I think could be challenged, just that statement alone?
Well,
But
I
if
think
he...
I think what
I
he's
think
trying
you're
to
saying that
imply is that there's other flaws in the other films as
He's
visual.
trying to hand wave it away.
Star
He's
Wars
trying to hand wave it
movies.
away as
Yeah,
oh,
it's
just
kind
flaws.
of
Yeah, exactly.
sarcastically
Just a
saying,
nitpick,
"Oh,
you know.
look, other films have had like visual inconsistencies. Why are you going at this film and not the?"
This is a major inconsistency, a huge one. Because if that dagger hadn't disappeared, Rey would be dead.
Yeah.
How
exactly.
bad?
He should be dead anyway. He has another fucking hand.
How bad an inconsistency is Luke doing that force kick thing from Return of the Jedi? Because that's all I can think of. I can't think of another example, and he doesn't give one.
Yeah, exactly. There are actually levels of how bad inconsistencies are. And so that's the first thing. And this one is a very big one, okay? And just because other things might have inconsistencies doesn't excuse this by any means. It's still a massive mistake.
That would be like saying, you know what, the rest of the movies and all the other movies, they're also really bad, but this one's not that bad, and there's only one of them.
It's kind of like if you had Lord of the Rings, an instance in Lord of the Rings where there's an arrow heading right towards the head of Aragorn or someone, and he didn't dodge or anything, and the arrow just disappeared before it reached his head. That's what kind of inconsistency we're talking about. A huge one. Like, Aragorn should be dead. Aragorn just uses Mary Sue powers in that instance to just make the arrow vanish into thin air. It's like Rey used her Mary Sue powers here to make a dagger literally vanish into thin air.
You know what it'd be like? It'd be like if Aragorn were fighting an orc guy, and then the orc guy had a dagger, and then the dagger disappeared. It'd be just like that.
Can you imagine, like in the sequence in Moria, where Frodo gets stabbed in the gut by the troll, where you see the scene with the troll raising his hand to stab it, and the next scene he goes to stab it, it's just not there in his hand.
What's going on here? Where did my weapon go?
Yeah. Right before Gandalf is about to be taken with the whip, the whip disappears and he just falls. And you're like, how did that happen? Oh, Gandalf just tripped.
He just falls.
He was too high.
Oh, yeah, all those arrows in Boromir, they just vanish and he's fine. There you go.
The bows just kind of disappear.
The bow disappears, and the orc is just holding an arrow. He's like, what the hell?
Frodo is standing over the fires of Mount Doom, and he's got the ring in his hands. And then we cut back to Sam, and he's like, throw it in. We cut back, and there's just a chain, and there's no ring there.
But it's just a small inconsistency, guys. It's fine.
Yeah. Minor. You can ignore it.
Guard disappears because the take that was used has a blade still in the left hand of the guard.
How
It
the hell is that
probably
arm
was
trapped?
supposed to have fallen away in the take used when the guard and
Why
Ray's
did you not get a
blade
hand
made
out of that?
contact. But I'd guess, as an editor myself, that this was the overall best performance of Daisy Ridley, and that the team decided to
Wait.
Oh, that does not
Interesting
say-
defense he has there. Interesting defense.
That does not say many good things about Daisy Ridley's acting skills there, mate. If that was the case, if that was the best take.
Dream a little bit. Goes,
Ah!
oh, and he's like, oh,
Like, have a look look at Ray's arm here holding her lightsaber. There's nothing holding that in, like her arm in that position. She could extend it, straighten it, and hit him in the back of the head. It's like one of them. I'm watching it. I'm thinking, what is going on? It's
How-
so
Hey, Shad, how is that grip? It looks very high up, close to the blade to me.
Which grip? I get like from which hand?
Raise, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Just like
yeah,
where
yeah,
she
with the
holds the blade.
lightsaber. I mean, yeah, like there are different ways you can, justify which way you'd want to grip the lightsaber. And with the way the lightsaber is, like I would actually grip it further down. It means it would be more top heavy, but that depends on how much weight the beam has.
Right, and people say that it has no weight at all, which I understand you can't really do that with a plastic blade, but I just find that very interesting. And the way that, what I don't think is on this film, that I think was on previous films, and correct me if I'm mistaken, is that I feel like the fight choreographer was not really a swordsman on this.
I don't know. Like, honestly, a lot of Hollywood stunts people, right, are not actual swordsmen. They know Hollywood style sword fighting, but they don't know actual swordsmanship. And if you want one of the worst examples of this, And hey, nothing against Matt Pat, but he did this like on his YouTube original series. He did this thing where he went to a Hollywood stuntman to learn sword fighting, and it is bad. Like the crap he's trying to teach him is horrible from an actual swordsmanship, technical
You should
standpoint.
teach Hollywood stunt people. Like, you could probably charge quite a lot.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, but there's actually a lot of people who could do it far better than me because there's such a
apparently they're
wealth of
not doing
experts. Yeah, I mean,
Apparently, they're not doing it at all.
No,
I
I'll
know
tell
exactly.
you-
They're not going to anyone.
I'll tell you, yeah, it's that. And then the other thing is that you have to be kind of in the area. People don't want to send out to get a sword master.
You could. I mean, you could
especially
be
lazy.
the world's first consulting swordsman. That'd be
Well,
awesome.
there are fight choreographers that have that expertise, but there are less than you would imagine. And starting that business is kind of difficult because you have to know people who want to hire you. And I'll tell you, one of the things is that doing period pieces is always an expensive thing. So there are not that many period pieces that get made. I know this is kind of unrelated, but as far as like if you're going to make a sword and gun movie, like a pirates movie, and you have to get a flintlock or whatever kind of musket you have, percussion cap, whatever, they're so temperamental that if you want to fire the black powder blank guns, you have to have at least 2 or 3 on hand for every one gun that you use because it might not fire for the scene. So I feel like there's a dearth of period piece movie experts and craftsmen when those movies aren't getting made. And Hollywood is not based around risk right now. It's doing everything it can to get nostalgia. So it's actually not as good as it could be. But hopefully if there's like a renaissance, we'll get more people and maybe Shad can do some consulting in the future.
Well, that would be wonderful. And I mean, this isn't to say that there aren't good fight scenes out there that have some better sword, form in it. And the perfect example is a Revenge of the Sith, Anakin versus Obi-Wan. There is some solid sword form in there, right? And so I would actually say that whoever choreographed that sequence, whole fight scene, knew a decent amount, and they actually have some really good sword flourishing happening in that fight scene. On top of that, another example is actually Vader versus Luke in Empire Strikes Back. The guy playing Vader, he actually had done some fencing. Now, fencing, like if you're looking at Olympic style fencing, there are issues, but at least there is some amount you can transfer, and you actually do see some, decent technique by Vader in the first half of that fight scene as well. And so it exists, but it's just a bit rare these days.
Can I ask you about something about that just really quick? Is the fencing background for David Prowse, I'm assuming you're talking about, would that be why he uses a one-handed sword technique and then Luke is using a two-handed? And what form of sword fighting is the sword master on the original trilogy movies teaching?
Yeah, I don't know. If I was to say the style, Vader is definitely using some fencing form, especially when it's going one-handed. He even does like a slight fencing flourish where he sweeps the lightsaber down and then back into guard position after the first or second exchange between him and Luke. Luke's one, his stance is more in line with a more kind of traditional Japanese, and this is where you can, take some references to kendo. His stance is a bit more in line with kendo, but the actual movements he's doing, the exchanges, the crossing and stuff, isn't kendo form. Kendo is far more linear, line of attack, straight single hits and stuff, and there's very little interplay and exchanges happening in the actual when the fighting is happening in kendo. So his stance is a bit kendo, but not the actual fighting. And in terms of the original trilogy, that's I feel has a lot of Eastern, Asian martial art influence on it. But what's interesting about that, it seems like they were adapting it because in Anakin versus Obi-Wan, they're using some forms that are actually similar to European style forms with high guard positions and things like that you see more. Well, I mean, it is adopted in Japanese swordsmanship. but I see it more often in European swordsmanship, especially because of the crossguard. So you can kind of pick out the flavors here and there and say, okay, the choreography probably has some, experience with this or that, or there's some adaptation here and there. I mean, but with this throne room fight scene, it's just garbage. It's like there's basically no sword form in it at all, like proper sword form.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I just did a little bit of preliminary research on the sword master of that. And the guy that did Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, you said that he had fencing training. It's Bob Anderson, and he was a fencer. He was doubling as Vader. And he also did The Phantom, The Mask of Zorro, and all 3 Lord of the Rings movies, as well as an additional sword trainer on Curse of the Black Pearl. So I'm curious if those... Oh, and also Barry Lyndon. So I'm curious if all of those have a consistency, if you ever notice those in the pattern, if you watch those.
Yeah, just thinking back, I can see some similarities in it. But also some of the similarities is that there is a classic Hollywood kind of fallback, which is a more traditional thing, and it's the low hit, high hit, and so the swords will cross low, and then they'll spin high, and then they'll cross low again, and they'll spin high. And especially if you go back, like in the black and white films where there's a lot of the swashbuckling thing, you'll see the swords going bang, 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 and they're just crossing low, crossing high, crossing low, and they're stepping forward and back while they're doing that. And it's just kind of, it's like movement filler when they haven't choreographed anything complex, but they need movement on screen. And I see a decent amount of that from people who kind of adapt fencing form, because when it comes to traditional fencing, there isn't a lot of complex interchange. Fencing is very much thrust and parry kind of stuff, especially Olympic style fencing, and it's very quick. And so I do see a bit of, more Hollywood traditional choreography in certain fights like that, but at least it's still a step up from the garbage we've been having to put up with recently. But yeah, I do certainly see the Hollywoodized kind of fencing form in those ones that you pointed out.
I just wanted to add one more thing to that, was that he also did Highlander and The Princess Bride, so it's all the same guy. And the last thing I wanted to ask, Shad, just as since this is still on topic, is do you think that some of the techniques that you see are for, number one, beginner swordsmen that are actors that only have a couple weeks to train, and number two, that are safer techniques that might not injure somebody, like a stab might be harder to block, so they don't go for that? Do you ever see that?
Yeah, I would actually agree with that, just on a cursory kind of, memory sweep. Yeah, very much so. Especially that basic sequence I was explaining before, the low hit, high hit. That's a very basic thing that anyone can pick up quickly, and it keeps them at a decent distance from one another to be safe as well. And yeah, so I think you have a point there, because you're also right that, with a thrusts can be dangerous even with a prop, whereas when you're just doing slashes and stuff, much lower risk of props when doing that.
All right, I need to read some super chats, and there's 2 of them, so I'm gonna keep going on the video here. This is from Punished Berserker. Thank you, sir. Daisy sucks, therefore the fight's good. Well, when you have a sentence like performance over consistency always, I think you already have your mind made up on what's good and what's bad.
It's kind of like Kung Pao logic. I'm bleeding and making me the victor.
Yes. And the other super chats from DGM Voices. Thank you, sir. He literally just gave the defense from that Simpsons episode with the film festival where Mr. Burns gets beat up by a horse in his movie. We did 9 takes, and that was the best one.
That was the best one. Okay, I know they're all terrible, but this was the best one, so it's good.
So this gentleman's standards are a little bit different than the rest of us, I would say.
Just because Sophistic Autistic asked in chat. So, Shad, what do you think of the Darth Maul fight scene?
I want to review that in depth, and so I'm only going off memory at the moment. I haven't actually sat down with a critical eye, because it looks great. Like, there's a lot of good movement in it. But I actually think it's just when I've seen glimpses and looking at just small sequences, I have seen more telegraphing and stuff in that fight scene compared to Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith, they really kicked it up a notch. And so I'm worried that when I review that whole fight scene in detail, is going to be more problems than my nostalgia remembers from it. So we'll have to wait and see. But there are some warning signs for me when I go and do that one.
All right, let's keep going.
Use this performance and send the shot off for rotoscoping so that way the blade could disappear for the remainder of this shot.
That is such a bad argument. I really just have to point that out. It's like everything was crap, so he had to take the least crap take. You're not helping yourself out with that argument, man.
So Rey is such a Mary Sue that she just dismissed that blade forever instead of just for a second.
There's no excuse for it.
Looking at the scenes again. Okay, so it's no one in Star Wars ever invented like flame retardant. Like, because we have it here, so why do they just have cloth that just lights up like just immediately as soon as anything hits them?
Because it looks cool.
Yeah, that's literally the only reason.
You could also ask, why do they have magnifying glasses to observe a battlefield when they have view screens and scanning things that can do, like, there's a lot of...
Why do they have decloaking scans?
Well, later in the fight scene, we'll see a guy block a lightsaber with his gauntlets, and then he'll get penetrated in the chest with lights. It's like, oh, that's not...
They put all the armor in the gauntlets.
All the armor.
They put all the armor in the gauntlets because, no one really needs to protect the vital organs. That's just silly.
Thank God my hand was protected.
I mean, maybe those guys saw the previous trilogy and it's like, okay, the people were getting their hands chopped off all the time. Better put all my armor in the gauntlets.
Does anybody else hate the idea that there's a prevalent amount of lightsaber armor? I really like that it can just cut through anything.
I like that too.
Yeah, like certain materials, I think should be more difficult to burn. Like higher temperature, also metal that melts at higher temperatures should be more difficult for lightsabers to cut through. But it shouldn't be possible for it to go through.
Remember,
they had a really hard time in the Phantom Menace.
Yes. The only one thing I can think of in Star Wars canon that cannot be penetrated by a lightsaber is the skin of a Zelo beast, and that was one of its special traits. Is that its armor is so thick and strong that it cannot be even penetrated by a lightsaber.
What about cortosis?
Cortosis, I remember.
How about
vibroblades? Oh yeah, I remember the vibroblades.
Yeah.
Is that from like all the expanded universe stuff?
KOTOR.
Yeah.
The first KOTOR.
Even in the core movies, it is canon that there are materials lightsabers have difficulty chopping through. Luke lands a hit on Vader's shoulder in Empire Strikes Back, and it doesn't chop through it, and so it actually
probably if you
spark.
If you put the lightsaber against it hard enough and long enough, you'd probably get through it.
Possibly, yeah. But going back
more
to
just
what
about melting, because lightsabers melt.
Yeah. But going back to what he was saying here, that that they edited out the dagger. The thing is, they edited it out and just had it disappear. Like if they're going to that much trouble, they actually could have added a digital dagger that fell out of his hand and dropped on the ground or something like that. At least would have, redeemed.
They could have had his hand chopped off.
There's so many things that they could have done, but they just said, "Nah, we'll just leave it. We'll just have the dagger dematerialize."
Not even that. It's like it's half of it. It literally disappears after the strike. You could have just airbrushed it out from the start, where you don't see the dagger in the hand at all. Like that would have been a solution too. You could have done anything. It's
anyway. Here's a super
again.
chat
The hand is still there.
Super chat from Mark in 3D. Actors said they got tired from recording the sequence and didn't have budget to rebuild the set. If only Ryan didn't spend so much on the space cow. Now, that might be true because there's a lot of money that got put into that very, very opulent set on Canto Bight, as we were told by Mr. Mark Hamill. It was the most expensive set he's ever seen. And I believe that Ryan Johnson was given lots and lots of leeway to do whatever he wanted. So
it's awful, though. Well, I mean, they can't do that again because of Canto Bight. Really?
No. Well, the animatronic sea creature cow thing cost $1 million to make or whatever.
Why? Why even have that in there?
They had to rent a helicopter to move it.
Yeah. You have to. Okay, so number one, you have to shoot on Skellig Michael, which is protected, and that creates budget problems. So they should have gotten off there immediately. They should have left Octo just for budget reasons. Number two, the cost of all of the props and everything and all the sets that they're building you consider that, and then you realize maybe we shouldn't tear this down if we need to do reshoots, because what's the point of tearing a set down before you've completed everything and made sure that the entire movie is finished to the point that you've actually got everything? I know that you have to cycle out certain stages for the next thing, but it seems just insane to me that with all the digital playback that you have, you can't just look at that. He could have looked at all those shots that day. He could have seen the dailies, and he could have made a decision, oh, we need to reshoot that. And they could have saved the set from that point on. And wasting the set and getting rid of it when you know that you're going to make another movie is a huge waste of money too. Because then does that mean that they had to rebuild all the Octo sets for The Rise of Skywalker? How much of a waste of money was that?
And just
So
think of the throne room itself. All
You
it
could
is
have filmed
one
them back
giant
to
red
back.
silk sheet that lights up on. I don't even know if that's a real sheet, but it should be.
No, it doesn't look real at all.
It gets lit on
If
fire.
they actually had a plan when going into this trilogy, they could have done all the Octo scenes like in one shooting, and they didn't have to rebuild and put it up and rebuild and put it up. But there was no plan whatsoever.
Let me put this into perspective. On one of the TV shows that my dad was producing, one season to the next, they knew that they were going to have to save a set. So my dad had the foresight to not rent out a studio to shoot the show. They rented out buildings and converted that into a studio. So then he had storage space for sets that they may reuse. So when the script came in, and it turned out they actually needed to rebuild a set that they had in storage because you could take it apart in pieces. That's how the Carpenters made it. They saved $200,000. That's not chump change. So,
No, it's not.
So
Wow.
millions of dollars on
You
a
kidding
big
me? I'd have that in my back pocket.
$1
Like,
million
just comes out of
on
nowhere.
that cow thing. So that's what they needed that money for. They couldn't rebuild the set because they spent all on that cow thing. Okay.
And the funniest thing, like the salt in the wound about all that, is that they spent the most money on one of the most pointless arcs of that movie, where like it should have been cut. Like, well, there's the whole movie
Exactly.
should be cut. It's so bad. But if you had to work with what was there in The Last Jedi, that whole thing needed to be cut because it was
Something
so
that-
pointless.
Something that would have been better would be to have like a kind of Holdo being some kind of spy, and then they're having to fight some kind of mutiny on the ship because the troopers have been told to attack Finn and Rose and Poe because the traitor said the spy said they're the traitor, and they have to try and work around that. But that'll eventually be an interesting idea again.
The only thing
Here's
that
how
happened in
you
Kento Bite, the only thing that resulted from the Kento Bite scene was they killed off Phasma again.
So here's what you do instead. Instead, you go along with what JJ was hinting at, and you make what's his name, Finn, a Jedi, and then you have Luke train both of them, and then you have them compete, and maybe they get a little bit closer, and we have character development.
Yeah,
Then we
Finn
don't
should
have
have
to go
become
on
a
an
Jedi.
adventure.
Yeah, Finn should have become a Jedi. And him and Rey kill Kylo, and Rey should have become evil, and the ultimate, end showdown should have been between Finn and Rey.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Finn should have been the main character, and Rey should have been a side character.
This happens every
I would
stream.
put Ben
We
Solo
always end
Yeah,
up
sorry
fixing
about that.
problems so quickly and so easily just by brainstorming just an extra 2 seconds.
So many things to fix. There's so many things to fix in that movie. It's just awful. It's a terrible movie. That's why they're using The Last Jedi as a way to teach what not to do in movies in schools now.
Yeah.
The thing is that we have an advantage because we actually think about these things.
Well, it just means that
How
there's
much
no
thought-
gate that needs to be kept. It means that anybody can go out there and make a better movie than some of these people.
There are better fan films out there than the sequel trilogy,
There
made by
is-
just people who are just passionate.
There is a fan film I wanted to show Shad. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called The Dark Jedi, and it's about, 5 minutes long. Really exciting fight scene. I was thinking a lot of these slashes and parries and attacks would probably work better if they actually just poked the guy in the chest with a lightsaber, but, it looks flashy. It's martial arts. It's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll watch
Well,
it.
hey, maybe if we've got time.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there are obvious concessions you can make to like proper swordsmanship form for the sake of making something look flashy.
Right.
I completely agree. But the problem is if the flashiness is at the detriment to the sword form, and it doesn't need to be. In actual fact, you can use it to complement it and make it brilliant. And so that's kind of my stance on that.
All right. Maybe we'll get that far. Who knows? But we'll watch it anyway later. But let's keep going with Mr. AT Chat.
At the end of the day, absolute realism is not what is important in regards to Star Wars.
No, but believability is.
The whole-
Believability is a very important part of a story.
It's not
not
about
realism.
realism. It's not about absolute. I don't think anyone's complaining about absolute realism. It's about the dagger should have cut her, but it didn't because she's a Mary Sue and it just vanished into nothingness.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not
yes.
realism. You said it perfectly, Shiny. It's not realism. Obviously, a lot of stuff in Star Wars isn't realistic. It's about believability, and it's how
Exactly.
the scene progresses. Like there's a clear inconsistency. There's something that disappears. You're like, why did it disappear? It's like it did.
Yeah.
just-
And it's perfectly justified to say that it's not realistic that daggers disappear in the Star Wars universe. There's nothing
Absolutely.
established to justify that. And so, yeah, the goal is you want it to feel realistic. And that's exactly what Shani was saying. It's like believability is the key there, because if it's believable, you can make it feel realistic. And so I just find it funny that it seems like he's justifying because Star Wars is fictional or fantasy. You shouldn't be upset. You shouldn't demand realism, which is his argument to say you shouldn't complain about daggers disappearing. It's like, that doesn't connect. No, absolutely you can complain it, because that's absolute bullcrap that daggers are disappearing for the sake of Mary Sue-ness.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going here.
Is it going for everyone else, or?
It's not playing for me.
Let's try
Not
again.
playing for me either.
Especially their laser sword
There we go.
fights. If it were, then these all wouldn't have
Hold on.
passed the true fantastic.
So right there, he pointed out a part where Luke could have cut off Vader's head. You see, that's valid. That's also a valid area where Luke overlooks something.
Another one just from this scene here with Obi-Wan. You can see like little pillars underneath that. Like, say, how did this not crush Obi-Wan's legs? Yeah, you can see little pillars at the bottom that are for holding it up and supporting it. So if that's keeping it above Obi-Wan's waist, it's just trapping him down and not, completely crushing him.
He did
Yeah,
this
I
last
mean-
time too.
This
Yeah,
argument is a very, very poor false equivalence, what is trying to apply here, because none of these examples are nearly as bad as that dagger disappearing. Not even close. And so if he's going to try and say, oh, there's other bad things that you guys haven't criticized, and therefore you shouldn't criticize this, that would only work if the examples he gives were literally as bad as, the dagger one. And they're not!
But even
Not by
then, that's a
any
what about, isn't it? It's like, oh, what about this? It's like, well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about this. That doesn't change that it's still an issue.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the thing that I always say is, it's like anytime someone will bring something like that up, like, what about this choreography error inside of this movie? It's like, that's a valid criticism in that film too. It's like, it doesn't change anything. It's the same applies to all Star Wars movies. If there are valid criticisms, then they apply to all of them. It's just, it's like if it's in one film, it can't be a problem in the other film. And it's like, no, it can be a problem in both.
Yeah, but to
Yeah.
him, it's already perfect. So, every film is amazing.
Right?
Everything is
Guess
awesome,
But also-
especially that throne room scene.
Yeah, but in addition, if the problems they're pointing out aren't as egregiously bad as the main one that we're looking at, they're easier to ignore. They're not as much of an issue. Like this example is trying to give with Obi-Wan potentially being crushed. Shani just pointed out, it's not going to crush him. It has, supports underneath that are going to make a gap there. And so it's not a valid, equivalent that he's trying to establish here in any measure.
Yeah, I'll definitely pin him down. But as we can see with our eyes, if you have working eyes, apparently we all do, you can see little pillars there. It's just going to pin him down, but it's not going to crush his legs. This is why it didn't. Also, he keeps going on about how Rey, I think last time he said that Rey is okay, and it's fine that she's okay from being tossed into a tree and then falling down a long ways because she has the Force. And then he pointed out he used this exact scene to justify why that's fine. Completely disregarding the fact that Master Obi-Wan has a little bit more experience in the Force than Rey does. It's a little bit, I think.
Just a tiny, weeny little bit.
Yeah, maybe years and years of fighting in a war, using the Force every day.
Well, how can you
Master Kenobi?
How can you justify that Kylo Ren wasn't able to kill Rey, but Rey was able to use Force powers to not break her back against a tree or something?
Yeah, and they're supposed to be on the same level. Kylo Ren and Rey. They're supposed to be on the same level.
I don't know what they're supposed to be. The movies do a terrible job of giving you power levels.
They just do a terrible job. The movies do a terrible job.
Best of 2019. Anyway, let's talk about the cinematography and the camera movement, which is directly related to how this scene is all stitched together. And just to be absurd, let's go through each edit in this sequence, and I'm ending it where Kylo tosses the vibroblade staff on the ground at the end. Okay, let's go. Close-up of Rey, close-up of Kylo, close-up of Rey, wide shot dolly
Those
of the
are
throne
medium
room.
close-ups.
This shot.
Couple of things. They're not vibroblades, not to my understanding.
I was about to say,
another thing, I just got reminded. I remember when it came to something about the Clone Wars, they were originally going to have vibroblades being used by the Mandalorians in that show. However, they ended up scrapping it because George Lucas didn't believe it was a good idea to have weapons which could handle a lightsaber, which is why the Darksaber was born. You know, the Mandalorian lightsaber. So in George Lucas's vision of Star Wars, nothing can go against the lightsaber. But I guess the only way these do is because they have this weird energy thing, kind of like what the Magna Guard staffs do.
They're weird. They're regular blades. There's no vibration or energy in the actual blade itself, but in front of it, they have this small little energy beam, like a mini lightsaber, which is used to hit the other lightsabers. They're very weird weapons. But we actually do see a vibroblade in Star Wars canon now in the Mandalorian series. When Mando, his dagger, you not really see it when he fights the Mudhorn, but when he's in the Mandalorian base and he starts to duke it out with that other Mandalorian, they get their daggers out, they're fighting, and then they grab each other's arms, holding each other's back. You see the vibroblades, and they're vibrating, and they're energy based and stuff.
So, just to answer someone in the comments, the electro staffs, that's more about the energy that they're outputting that defends against the lightsabers. I don't think it's the actual staff itself, as those can be cut through.
And also just going back to what the scene here, it's trying to say the editing was good. Everything is pointed out up to this point wasn't in the fighting. Like it was a close up of Rey, like face, close up of Kylo, then close up of Rey. The fight hasn't happened yet. Okay, now the fight has, and right now this is going to be a static, like what we see here. This is a static camera, okay, of just people fighting. That can work, but it's nothing inventive or impressive. The camera isn't moving to follow anyone's movements at all.
I think it's just like a very, very slow dolly in, isn't it? Just like very slow.
Yeah,
yeah.
Move in a little bit as the fight progresses.
So just a static frame in that it's like there's no zooms, and then it's just on one of those little dollies moving very slowly, and then it looks like it's shot at like 32 frames a second, and then ramped up to 24. And I always thought that was weird. I mentioned in my video. I don't understand why they would want to highlight their errors by going into slow motion, but apparently they thought it was really good.
And I know it's we went over this before and earlier in the stream, but I know we went over it because why are they fighting? Why are they trying to kill Kylo? But that's also a very good question, narratively speaking. We usually need to know why they're fighting. So why are they fighting here? What's going to happen if Rey and Kylo lose this fight? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like who's going to take power?
Compare that to the setup of episode 3 or heck, even episode 1. Like, why that's happening. It's not the best explanation in episode 1, where I think Darth Maul is angry or he wants revenge for something. We're not exactly sure why.
He's got to kill
in episode 1, he's been told to kill the other Jedi.
Yeah.
He just loves hating Jedi.
Yeah, pretty much.
And without those Jedi, the audience knows that the bad guys are going to win because Darth Maul is very powerful. He can take on a Jedi master and his apprentice, or what? Maybe a man. I'm not sure if he's a master or not, but he can take on 2 Jedi at once, pretty simply. He's pretty aggressive. He's a very talented dark Jedi in and of himself, plus his master. So we kind of, as the audience, know that if Darth Maul wins, then there's a good potential chance that the bad guys will win the day, even at that point, because of Darth Maul's power. And then we have the final fight of the episode 3. If Anakin Skywalker wins, he's just going to destroy the rest of the Jedi Order and the Republic and all that stuff, because he has to lose in order for Ben Kenobi or Obi-Wan Kenobi to saves at least something. Because if he doesn't, then in his mind, at that moment, then Anakin Skywalker is going to run over everybody. So it's very important, narratively speaking, to know the stakes. For this to be a high stake, for us to be invested into this fight scene, we need to know what's going on. What's going to happen if they lose? What do they have at stake besides their lives? What's going on, and why are they fighting in the first place? It's a very good question, very good thing to answer.
Lasts for 12 seconds. Medium close-up of Kylo.
Oh, sorry, just to like, it lasts for 12 seconds. But when it comes to these shots here, when it comes to what I remember saying before, it wasn't very inspired. And like recently, I was given a sheet of like different kinds of camera shots of like what you can do, and that just kind of feels like someone has just taken that sheet as like, I'm going to use that one there, that one here, that one there, rather than imagining all the different creative ways you can actually use the camera. Because that's something which George Lucas did a lot during the prequels, and I think even to an extent, The Mandalorian, they have a lot of very creative shots which aren't just your standard list of them. Which,
yeah, like looking at the camera work and from memory of this fight scene, all I remember is very standard, cuts and slight camera panning, and it might move slowly or zoom in slowly, and then cutting to someone else doing something. That's all I can remember. And that is, look, there are a lot of good fight scenes that are cut this way in the sense of the camera work, and so it's serviceable, but it's nothing exceptional. And he's trying to say that the camera work is exceptional. It's one of the things that makes this fight scene brilliant. And there's nothing like that here. It's all very basic stuff.
Yeah, it's very textbook. I don't want to say that there's anything wrong with having kind of a subdued camera, but I don't think it's something that's a strength of this scene. This is just like what it's frozen on. I think for everybody is this is just like the frame is cut into 3/3, and he's just right in between the first 2/3. So that we can see him fighting in a medium shot. And then there's that red background. It's all about the colors. That's what they're trying to show off. But there's no choreography between the camera and the fighting. There's no parallels.
No actual interplay.
And red on red as well. That's not a very good use of... Like, if you had just had the black background be space, then that would be a much better way for your fighters to stand out.
And seriously... If anyone wants to see like a brilliantly done fight scene in terms of how the camera reacts to what the people are doing and what the camera work is doing, and engaging camera work that steps it up on a much higher level than what we're seeing here, go watch The Witcher in the Blaviken fight scene, okay? Look at what the camera does. It zooms into the crossbow. It spins around. It zooms in then on, Geralt. And then it follows Geralt like, as he's moving around, he's walking, and then it goes into his back, and then it spins around to another person, and it's the camera is just doing brilliant stuff in that fight scene, and it's like night and day when you compare that to what we have here. And this isn't horrible, it's average, it's standard, it's so
uninspired, I'd say.
Yeah, there's one zoom in I remember. I think when Rey gets cut by the dagger, you see like a zoom in, like enhancing that. Like you see it zooms in and then she gets cut. It's like it's like that's a little something, but other than that, it's pretty much the same thing that Glib described, which is just medium close-ups throughout the entire thing, and it's all very average essentially. There's not much in the way of interesting camera movement.
Well, we have to understand what he considers quality and good while he's canning all these shots and saying, well, this is good because in shot number 7 this happens, and we haven't gotten that yet. We don't know why. He's just counting them. So
right,
it's like he's counting the cuts and is not actually saying what the camera's doing in each one. Like the camera's close.
Someone's spamming in chat, Shad. Sorry, not Shad, it's just Smud.
Sorry, what?
Sorry.
So I was about to say, Smud, someone's spamming hi in chat.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
you might want to do something about them.
Well, hi back.
Hello.
He's very friendly.
Hi.
There we go. You got acknowledged. We shall continue.
Hello there.
Come here, little friend. Don't be afraid.
Kylo fighting. Medium shot of Kylo
They
fighting.
still
Medium
doing-
shot of Rey being choked. Medium shot of the guards choking Rey from opposite angle. Medium
This is all really average. It's like medium shot, close shot, Like, that's basic stuff so far, okay? Point out something that the camera does that's interesting and impressive.
It almost looks like they made like a carbon copy of a sci-fi original movie. That's how basic this is.
And we're not saying it's terrible camera work. I mean, it's good that they do a close-up of the face to show, you know, the strain and the difficulty, and that I like that, you know, fight scenes done on a wide shot so we can see the movement clearer and stuff, but that actually works really badly in this fight scene's favor, because when you see their movements clearly, they're pretty bad. But yeah, so look, we're not saying it's bad. It's just average. There's nothing like remarkable that is pointed out yet.
Yeah, it's ultimately fine, but but the thing is, the reason why this is awful is because he's trying to argue that this is not only excellent, not only exceptional, but one of the best fight scenes in the entire saga.
I will say it has a diversity of weapons that we don't get in any other
There you
places.
go.
Like,
Not only is it a womb, it has diversity too.
But wouldn't that be better?
Another thing about
Wouldn't it be
this
better if
scene,
they all had lightsabers and it was an actual lightsaber fight? Why half-ass it? Why not just go full blast? Why have armor with them? Why not just have cool-ass dark Jedi characters like what we're used to? Everything has to be a subversion. Everything has to be a little salt in your
Subvert
wound.
your expectations, because he has to subvert your expectations, or else he doesn't get a paycheck or something.
By the way,
just,
can I just point
I
out?
remember this scene from one of Shad's videos. Like, if she just kind of pulled her lightsaber down or put it at a different angle, she could just pull it out.
Or she could chop him in the head. If she angles her lightsaber forward, there's
Or his
nothing
arm.
holding. Yeah, like, it's so dumb. And I mean, and if she's concerned in just freeing a lightsaber, and this is one that I didn't actually say in my video, and I wish I did, she could just turn it off and on and then kill it. There is so much stupid with this fight scene.
Also, the lightsaber is the only thing holding it at her throat. So if she just moved her lightsaber, then that thing's not going to be stabbing her throat anymore.
Well, you basically broke my mind, Shad, when you said that lightsabers can be turned off and on. Now I can't stop thinking about how useful that would be. It's like, why not just...
Really?
How cool would a scene be if there was just like a cowboy, samurai type lightsaber guy, whatever, Jedi, and he comes into town and he always keeps his saber off until he slashes. So every time he slashes, you get a little bing of light and a little sound, and then it goes off again.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Hell yeah. And that was all because of Shad.
Yeah, and there's so much utility in the fact that it can be turned off and on, and it can create problems. I can actually create problems in the choreography, and I would almost think the safer way is just to say there's a timer that like needs to cool down, or recharge or something between hits. And then that would answer why they're not turning it off and on in combat. So you could, like, get behind someone's guard and then turn it on just right when it makes contact with the body of the opponent you're fighting, because that would be a profoundly useful and devastating tactic to use. But no one's ever doing it. And so rather you need to explain why people aren't doing it, and that's a good explanation, that there's a timer or cooldown, except this fight scene proves that wrong, because they turn it off and on really quickly and on and off really quickly in this fight scene at the end. And so that establishes lightsabers can do this, and no one's doing it because
I'm pretty sure in every single Star Wars movie you always see that it goes down slowly. Like, the lightsabers can turn on really fast, but when you turn them off, there's like a and then they go down nice and slow. Like when Luke turns his off inside of the throne room with Vader and he says, "I'll never turn to the dark side," it goes down like slow. It's like I've never seen it go that way. It's like it's the first time when it just goes on off. It's like,
This is the same
on off.
Kylo, when he holds it back, he literally goes and it goes on and off like in a flash in this scene.
And this is the same lightsaber from A New Hope, and it suddenly behaves differently. I hate the sequel trilogy for just contradicting.
I want to just point out that on the lightsaber, every time Rey turns Anakin's lightsaber on, she does it with the top button when the activation is the little switch down. Yeah.
That was a sign,
right
guys.
down there in the middle.
As soon as you saw that, you should have known they did not have the mentality to know what their own product was. They didn't know the rules of it.
But this is just a very simple, basic thing. It's not like some amazing fight scene. It's like, okay, so Daisy Ridley, when you turn the lightsaber on, flip this little switch here. You just flip it up, and everything will. But you don't do that at all.
The more you think about it, the more it seems like because in this sort of image, this sort of scene, you're expecting the heroes to fight really well, to be really on top of the game, have a masterful battle against all these other fellow guards, these Praetorian guards who are supposed to be the best of the best. But brilliant Rian Johnson subverts your expectations by making them fight horribly, by making everyone fight terribly. So you think they're all skilled, but they're not, and that subverts your expectations. So obviously, that is why this this scene is the most brilliant one in all of Star Wars. Case closed.
Fantastic.
I don't think there's
big
ever
brain
any.
watching.
Is there ever any force powers being used in this scene at all?
Nope, they both forgot.
I forgot.
They forgot about their force powers where they
pretty
can
sure-
just pick
I'm
someone
pretty
up
sure-
and throw them.
Pretty sure every writer for every fight scene forgot about force powers, because you just see a bunch of lightsaber clashing, especially even in the Force Awakens, the final scene between Rey and Kylo. When it's the time to do their final fight, it's just lightsaber combat. No real force powers. Here, the same thing.
Well,
The thing
what's
is, the
hilarious,
explanation behind
Kylo,
that outside of universe.
Kylo
outside of
deals with
universe-
Rey. Oh, sorry, go.
Okay, I was going to say the explanation for outside of universe. The outside explanation they've given is the idea of force walls. So outside of the movies, so like your concentration in the force is what stops other force users from just force pushing you, and that's what protects you. And when a user becomes sort of unfocused, or the power behind the force attack is just so great, that's when they become vulnerable to it. And that's kind of why in most fight scenes you don't see the force powers being used all the time. So it is believable to some extent, but when it comes to the new
it's a
universe,
great explanation. That's a great explanation, and we actually see it in Obi-Wan versus Anakin, where they try and force push each other, and they both block it. And so it's even in the movies a bit. The problem with it is that when a force user is fighting someone who is untrained and shouldn't be able to force block anything incoming, like they still don't do it. And the fact Kylo deals with Rey in 2 seconds by throwing her into a tree, and then when she gets up again, mate, she's got a lightsaber. Why don't you just do that again? It worked really well. Just throw her into a tree. Don't let her fight.
That's why I find it so strange, because they remember it outside of combat. When it's time for the final combat, suddenly all the force powers kind of disappear.
Exactly. It's like, it's dumb.
All right, let's keep going.
Shot of
Well,
Rey
one thing
escaping
I'd
the
say,
choke.
Rey wouldn't know about force walls because I think it was implied that it was something that was taught to the Jedi in the Sith. And obviously, Rey hasn't got any bloody teachings, has she?
Yeah, it's almost like she didn't have any training, so that's why it's a problem.
Oh, right. Yeah, that thing. Training.
Then it dollies back out to widen up the shot, and then it follows Rey throwing a vibro blade that hits the other side of the throne room, catching fire. Medium shot of Rey. Medium shot of the guard who breaks his
And that
staff in
one
one
guy.
section.
That
Okay,
one fucking guy.
He's just standing around. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, I know. But I will acknowledge that last cut that he showed that had more camera movement than what we saw in other things, where it zoomed in a bit and then it panned it. And so it's still not anything particularly special, though. It's still very basic, slow moving camera at the moment.
Well, I mean, he's not going into detail on any of this. He isn't explaining anything. He's just saying these are the shots, and I'm like, sure, but what are they trying? What are they illustrating? What story's being told through the camera movement? Like that's usually what you do in an assessment like this. It's just he's not doing anything.
No, I didn't even notice that this guy was just standing around during this fight.
I know.
What was he doing? Just texting his friends, and because he's always standing guard every day on Snoke, guard duty on Snoke, and then one day suddenly something actually happens, and he's on the phone or something. I don't know. Maybe he's lazy.
He's like kneeling down. That might unironically
He's like
be
waiting to pull his staff apart into 2 daggers. Like, wait, come on.
It's
Notice
quite
me.
literally
Notice me.
waiting his turn.
Is this part of his strategy? Is this like Final Fantasy logic here? Is this okay? So the strategy of the Praetorian Guard is: you guys go fight first. If you die, then I go in.
No,
I think this
we
is
need a
the
fair
disappearing-
fight. We're gonna go fight them 1-on-1 because I like that for some reason.
Are we in an anime now? We can game up with everybody, but it's going to be ending up being one-on-one fights.
And I'm pretty sure this is the disappearing dagger guy ultimately as well.
Of course it is. The guy who wasn't paying attention and missed his opportunity to do his job correctly is the dagger guy.
So I'm glad that he enumerated all the shots, but I still don't understand why.
Also, This has got nothing to do with the choreography of the actual fight. It's just, oh, shot, here's another shot, oh, here's a close shot, here's a far shot, here's a mid shot. The camera swings around and it does a shit.
Well, I mean, he said he's going to talk about editing, but this isn't really like an editing analysis. He's just saying what the shots are. It's like you should try to, like I said, you should try to talk about like what's going on with the camera, what the intent, the direction.
Audience, if you ever want to see a good video on breaking down fight scenes, go to Shad. If you haven't already, it's miles better than this shit.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, he has tried to say, well, look, the camera follows the throne whip thingy and stuff. And so I think that's implying that it's good that it's following it because we get some kind of visual direction from the camera. But again, that's still basic. This is normal stuff. We're not finding anything exceptional from this at the moment. So yeah, he still hasn't established why this camera work is the best ever.
Medium shot of Rey and her battle cry. Medium shot of the guard approaching
Yeah,
Rey
battle
and then
cry.
the blades
10
make
out of 10
contact.
acting. Just her
Match cut to
screaming.
Kylo Ren. B-roll shot of the guard being thrown into an energy well. Medium shot of Kylo Ren pointing his blade.
All
Close
basic.
up of Kylo Ren's face. Medium shot of guards with camera.
You're
Like,
saying medium.
Yeah, like the thing
Those
is, right,
are like medium close shots, aren't they?
Repetition is not a particularly great pattern when it comes to filmmaking. Like medium shot over medium shot over medium shot isn't very strong filmmaking.
He's just saying there's a cut here, there's a cut here, and he's trying to establish that this is all great camera work. I know this is all very basic stuff. Like he like in one of those cuts, cut to a medium shot. Nothing interesting happens with the camera in that shot. It's just a cut to a medium shot and then cut something else. That's not impressive. That's basic.
I could give you a sheet that has all of this on.
Sure.
You just roll the dice and pick this shot, and okay, next scene.
You'd probably come up with a better scene because there'd be more like random camera movements than this, which is just
Crane shot. Whoa.
Close up, medium shot. Close up, medium.
Random over the head shot. Oh, look here, the camera does a spin. Oh, look, it's over here. That'd be way more interesting. Just random.
That, man. Just roll the dice
Roll
and
the
see
dice.
what happens.
Like, look
It's
at
like
this fight scene, and then look at a fight scene from like Kingsman or something.
There's like
a little bit of difference there.
A GoPro.
I know,
on-
like-
Say, Kingsman is so good.
Great
Like,
example of actual camera work as well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Shad was talking about The Witcher and like how that uses editing and like the motion of the camera to like track the movement of the actors. Like Kingsman has a fantastic fight scene inside of the church. Like all the fight scenes of that movie are fantastic and have great editing and cinematography. So yeah, you can use it. It's pretty simplistic what we're going over right now.
Camera tracking movement. Close-up of Kylo's face. Wide shot of Kylo and the guards in the foreground, and then it pans and zooms over to Rey's battle. Close-up of Kylo Ren's face.
Yeah, that's
Wide shot of
pretty
Kylo
interesting
flourishing
shot.
around the guards as he takes one of them out. Wide shot tracking with Rey fighting the guard. Match cut to medium shot of Rey being kicked down. Medium shot of Rey getting off the ground. Wide shot of Kylo Ren fighting the two remaining guards. A 15-second medium.
Just to give you like an example of what I mean by reason the fighting. Like, for example, what if Kylo Ren didn't kill Han Solo? What if he had, I don't know, some sort of second thoughts and didn't kill him in The Force Awakens, and then he's faced with the choice again now, but he didn't do it again. He decided to I don't know, spare Han Solo out of love for a moment of weakness. He doesn't have to turn or redeem himself at this moment, but for one moment of weakness, he said, "No, I'm not going to kill Han Solo, my dad." And then Snoke had his Han Solo killed by one of these guards. Then you would have some sort of human emotion there, something we as the audience can connect to. Humanity.
I think you're a bit too close to your mic.
No, I'm like to be too close.
You're getting too emotional, sir.
But the humanity is there. The humanity would be there. So if we saw, Han Solo being killed by these guys, by Snoke's men, and then the fight scene broke out, then we would have a connecting sense of humanity, a sense of revenge that we as the audience can relate to.
You're absolutely right. There would be far more emotional investment in the fight scene if we actually had any feelings towards these faceless guards. If they did anything other than just, oh, now we're fighting. Yeah, I completely agree. And just going back to what the guy was saying in this video, the only interesting thing the camera actually did in all those cuts was it zoomed in on Rey when she got cut. And that was just a zoom. So it's not like the most interesting thing was still a very basic thing. So...
He didn't even elaborate on that. He just said it. It's like,
Yeah.
you could have used that. You could have used any of these.
He's
shots,
got like
he's
the
just
first
saying.
part of objective observation figured out, and then he just sort of forgets about it.
Pretty much, yeah. You probably
I think I
figure
fixed the
out-
mic. How do I sound now?
Oh, you sound fantastic.
You sound
Oh,
fine.
awesome. I don't know why the mic reset itself again. So
Maybe I'm
lowered
just
it.
biased. Yeah, I was just like, ooh, you sound great. Yeah. I
I
got to
mean,
do some super
Literature
chats,
Devil always
guys,
sounds
so give me-
great.
Give me a minute. Okay, James Moore, thank you, sir. Go back to the energy well part. I think that's the most violent death outside of General Grievous. He literally explodes. I don't remember that. Huh.
It was literally just, I think it might have been an extra scene on Blu-ray or something where we just saw it and one of the Praetorian guards fell into some well and lots of stuff just kind of came.
Like it's red. It's like
Yeah,
it's
that's in the
comedy.
normal fight. It just that's in the cinematic release as well. It's just like
I
he
just
falls in.
forgot about it then.
Yeah, he falls into like a fan thing, and a poof of material flies out, implying he just got shredded into a million pieces. But it's still just really a poof of material.
Right. Here's another super chat from Joe Crazy. So when is AT-AT going to get to the point? Well, we're waiting. I don't know. He's listing all these shots, but he's not actually explaining anything. He's just enumerating them all and talking, saying, oh, this happens here, and this happens, and then that happens. Okay. Thanks.
We should start making bets on like this video. It's like, okay, is he gonna get to 5 minutes without talking about choreography? But is he gonna talk about choreography whatsoever?
I'm not sure he's going to mention the choreography at all, because so far all he's said why this fight is great is because of the camera work and the music.
No.
Like
he mentioned Daisy Ridley's acting was
better
than
Hold on,
consistency.
guys.
So
And that's why the knife.
Hold on,
is
he's setting up. He's setting a big dunk. Supposedly he's going to be at the end of all this scene counting. We're going to all have egg on our faces. Okay, he's going to explain to us at the end of all this what the brilliance of the scene that we have all supposedly missed.
You know, I think we could make bets about him not even saying the word choreography in this whole video.
Oh, you want to make a bet? I wonder why. I wonder why.
here's a super chat from Mr. Dennis Marquez. Thank you, sir. Comparing Shad's video to this guy is like comparing a rookie to an MLB veteran player. Shad backs his videos with facts. AT-AT only mentions his opinion.
He basically AT-AT Chan is all emotion. I love this, therefore it's good.
and I appreciate the compliment, sir. That's very, very, very much appreciated.
Shadiversity his videos are leagues above this. Leagues above this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but he didn't enumerate the
You
shots.
can't.
Right?
There is no
So,
compare.
You got to enumerate the shots first before you start talking about them in detail, I think, right? Is that how it works?
I suppose he could be using this to set up points about it and explain later on, but I guess we'll see.
Okay.
Medium wide shot of Kylo Ren taking on the guards. A medium wide shot of Rey swinging at the remaining guard. Then the camera is also revolving around Rey. Close up of Kylo with the
how he
blade
puts,
near his
like,
face.
YouTuber,
Close up
like,
with
or
Rey with the blade
ridiculous.
near her face. There's a low angle medium shot of Rey dropping the saber. Then there's a
And
medium
he
that
wide
shot.
shot
watches the
reverse
guard and
angle of
slap
love that
the
shot so
blade
much.
into her face.
There's tension. Let go. There's no more tension. What?
He just
just
stands
sliced
there.
her.
He just let
just
go of the
gives up.
lightsaber, just kind of like instead of trying to keep going into a throat and just chop her head off, you just kind of like, oh, I'm going to hold it here and wait to die.
Yeah, even though it does not make any sense, like that was what was set up in that scene, is that she's holding back because he's pushing as hard as he can, and then as soon as she lets go, he just stops pushing for no reason and just lets him die. It's ridiculous.
Well, obviously he read the script.
Pretty much.
Maybe for 1 second he thought, hey, I have really good insurance. My family's going to be taken
Right.
care of if I die. I might as well just get killed.
Like
And
Ryan
maybe-
Godson just said, "Oh, look, you're gonna die now." And he's kind of, "Oh, fine, I'll accept."
They're going to die now. They're going to die now. Maybe you know what? You know, it'd be really interesting if their insurance paid triple if they got killed by Jedi. Death by lightsaber pays out triple.
Well, we're
Especially
gonna
if
make
you're on a
another
business trip.
backstory here. We're gonna have a backstory behind these Praetorian guards. Like they've got really struggling families. Like, look, I just have to die. Just kill me, and my family will get all the interest. Just do it. Here's weapon.
Believe it or not, the Praetorian Guard doesn't get paid very well. So just go ahead and kill me. I get triple payout
The
if I die on a
Empire
business
is
trip.
evil, but man, that insurance premium is so good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I'm
They
going
pay out
to
really
slaughter
well.
that planet for you, sir.
No wonder they get so many troops, and no wonder they have infinite men. You know, men all their infinite ships. Palpatine might be an evil wizard, but he has great insurance.
He pays really fucking well.
Oh boy, we're on 32 shots. I don't know why, but we are. Let's keep going.
Maybe we should take a
Great.
shot every time he says a shot.
No, we'd be dead.
We literally would be
Passed
dead
out.
at this point.
I'm already dying from this.
Rey slicing at the Praetorian Guard. Medium shot of Rey turning to see Kylo. Close-up of Kylo struggling. Close-up of Rey throwing the saber to Ben. Wide shot
Acting.
of Rey throwing the saber, and then the camera pans to follow the saber. Close-up of Ben catching the saber. He turns it off and on, and then alt close-up angle of Ben as the guard.
Oh, whoops! I tried to press pause and I just brought it way back. My apologies.
Have you ever seen that Futurama episode where we go by that one acting robot, Kakulon, and he goes, "Emote more, I am acting." So his method of acting is just emotion to emote to the highest degree. It reminds me of this scene. We have to make sure that the audience knows that we are really intense right now. Make the most intense face you can possibly make, as if you hadn't, like, I don't know, went to the you haven't gone to the bathroom in 10 days. It's really intense.
It's amazing stuff. And I mean, the most interesting thing the camera did in the sequence he was just talking about was that it panned when it followed the lightsaber. There we go, guys. Camera panning following a single movement is the gold standard of brilliant camera work.
Maybe the cameraman was the good cameraman was off duty, and then he came back for a second. He came in for a cigarette, and he said, "Hey, come over here. We need to do the shot. Hey, you can go. You can go."
It's like, is that all? Just we're panning to follow a throne thing? I could do more.
Yeah.
No, that's all we need. That's brilliant. That's the best.
I mean, come on, man.
What
We
if
spent all
I?
of our money on Canto Bite and a weird animatronic milk cow thing. We can't afford you.
We had to fire 10 cameramen to constitute Canto Bite.
It was worth it. We sacrificed all of our
understand.
camera crew. We had the interns do this.
Canto Bite was the key. Canto Bite was the key to the
Like
whole
Jar Jar.
story.
like Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
Here's a super chat from Random Thoughts. Thank you, sir. He's actually defending this. I've just arrived, and he said anything about the choreography. I don't think he's used the word choreography yet.
He hasn't.
The vanishing knife, also high shad. Yeah, I don't know.
Hello.
It's hard to say exactly what he's trying to say in this scene, aside from counting the shots and describing them. That's about it.
I'll be kind of surprised if he does use the word choreography, because every single argument he's made has been like a sidestep of the actual critiques, like the dagger thing at the very beginning says, "Oh, it's just an error, like Star Wars has never had errors before. Like, it's a pretty significant error," but he's brushing it off as just one of those nitpicks that the fanboys hate.
Well, I want to find out what he's trying to say about all these shots, because he just listed them, and I'm like, okay, dude.
I know.
What's
Tell
your
us
point?
why they're good.
The anticipation is killing me.
As the guard falls to the floor dead. Finally, we have a wide shot of Kylo Ren standing up, and he tosses the guard's blade. Now, if you're keeping track, that is about 39 edits. What Rian Johnson did with this entire idea and the sequence.
Well, no, it's shots. They're not edits exactly.
I mean,
They cuts.
how
They
can
cuts.
you deny the brilliance? How can you deny the brilliance?
That's a better
of him
word.
standing up
Why
at
did
the
he
end?
show a picture of a timeline? What the hell is he talking? What?
Hang on. If the number of cuts is what makes a good scene, my videos are bloody brilliant.
Well, then,
I'm the jump
they
cut
are,
master, mate.
do you guys remember that Taken 3 scene where Liam Neeson, who's like in his 60s, tries to get over a fence? That has a lot of cuts. That must be the
I tried
best.
to forget about Taken 3. That was awful. It's a terrible.
Yeah, I'm like, is he saying that more cuts is better, or like is he just saying the edits are
Well,
really good? Like,
I
what
want to
is-
hear what he has to say,
Well,
but
I
I
would
love
say
what he's
longer
saying here.
If
I love
I-
what he's saying here.
would be better.
Yeah, if I
Like
were-
less cuts over longer times, because that could be visually impressive to have one single shot going around an entire scene.
Yeah, but why does it have to be like that? Why can't we just judge a sequence based on what it calls for and
Right.
not like, let's keep it to the context. Like two people fighting in a room, you can make that super fleshed out, or you can keep it from a really distant perspective, and those are two completely different feels. If you
I
have a
was talking
shot,
more about it's how impressive it is.
No, I
to
get what
make
you're
it all
saying.
one shot. I didn't say it had to be.
I hear what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that you could take that in both directions. You could be like, wow, this is super impressive because all of the cuts are so slick and there's so many of them, yet we feel all of the fluid kinetics of the action. Or you could say, wow, I really loved how there was a fight scene, but it kept dollying slowly backwards in a wide shot until the bad guy got defeated, and we just felt like we were more and more distant from him. Or you could push in slowly, like what is paused on my screen as it says, like RJ and Yedlin prefer long takes, and it's like, okay, if they did, then why? How are you justifying the fact that they didn't do that here? That's what I'm waiting for him to say.
And he counted them all, and we compare other fight scenes. Let's say even Hong Kong cinema, they have these really wide, long shots, and there's 1 or 2 takes, and it's this fully choreographed scene of dodges and kicks and what have you, and that takes months to do. We've seen with Jackie Chan some scenes in a movie, a 2-minute scene. I think it was Drunken Master, took like 6 or 8 months just to shoot. And
yeah, because the choreography is good.
Yeah, because it's complicated. It's very dangerous. You have to know what you're doing. This may have taken, I don't know, maybe a month? 2, I guess? So doing long shots or doing short shots really doesn't change the fact. It's what exactly is going on in them.
And how well they're executed as well.
Right.
And also, let's be real. If you have a 1 take, you're going to want to chop it up if there are mistakes in it or a little, you could have the best take and there's just 1 shot that you have to cut out because the actor was making a silly face. You're just like, oh, shoot. So that's why you shoot coverage. So you go, all right, I have a reverse angle. And when I'm editing, now I have other angles to cut to. And then it's like multi-track recording. The idea is you have 5 takes of this, 5 takes of this, or whatever, however many takes that you have time for. And then you can go up and down and cut and put together and remake one timeline that's conformed and almost perfect. That's what you're shooting for. You never get there, but you just shoot for it. So I'm confused because if they want it to be a long take and they have a lot of cuts, then that obviously means there were a lot of mistakes that had to be covered up. So I don't understand what he's saying.
As well, like filming the same sequence with multiple cameras on different angles, it means you can also lengthen out certain scenes, and this is what they did in Obi-Wan versus Anakin. They have a sequence of moves, and I actually feel this was done with the same take, but because they filmed it on multiple camera angles, you see them do a sequence of moves from the same take, and they show that same take and the same sequence of moves from another angle, and you only notice it when you're really paying attention because it actually works fine, and it means that because they filmed it from multiple angles, they are able to lengthen out the fight scene. And take advantage of that.
Yeah, if we have time, I'm not sure, but there's a scene. I'm not sure if you've seen it. Have you seen the movie Harakiri, Shad?
No.
I'm like, oh man. Well, we should show that as an example of exactly what I think he's talking about here, where the camera is very reserved in its movements, but it's very precise in its framing. And then the cuts get more rapid as the scene starts to climax. There's a great amount of atmosphere and the way that it proceeds, and it has the same sensibility that I think Ryan was going for, but it's executed properly. So and you should check out that movie because I don't know about the technical accuracy, but it's my favorite sword fighting movie as far as samurais go.
Ooh,
I'll post it.
Yeah, send me a link.
All right, let's keep going, guys.
Was to create a sense of space or lack thereof with the camera moving in and out around Kylo and Rey in various ways. Now, of course, there are a wide array of shot types to tell the story of this particular sequence, but it's one of the most elegant and restrained lightsaber battles that has been filmed ever, while at the same time...
How is there a wide array of shot types when 90% of the time you're saying the word medium?
I was about to say, this still feels like build-up to his qualifiers. I'm just waiting for them to happen.
I just want to point out, it's nearly been half his fucking video, and he hasn't talked about the fight in the fucking fight scene.
Just how many cuts there were.
How is that possible? How do you talk about a fight scene without talking about the fucking fight?
It's a special skill.
Calm down, Shiny. Calm down.
It's a great question. But he considers this elegant and reserved. It's like... interesting words. I would have called it standard.
What's his baseline for elegant? This doesn't look elegant to me.
Remember the fight scene with Ben and Vader? That was pretty reserved. That was like slow-mo compared to this.
Yeah. Actually, I want to jump on that. You're absolutely right. Like, they have long shots of them facing off against each other and subtle movements where Luke shuffles forward half a step and then Vader reacting, and it builds tension, and it's brilliant. So if you want to talk about subtlety and reserve, Yeah, Vader versus Luke in Empire Strikes Back trashes this one.
I guess we have to just wait a second because apparently he's going to bring in his checkmate move pretty soon here. The one that's going to put egg all over our faces and prove us all wrong, and we'll see the truth. We'll be indoctrinated into the religion of Rian Johnson fairly soon here, supposedly.
Feeling so relentless in its energy that we essentially basically forget that we are watching people fully.
So is it elegant or is it relentless? Make up your fucking mind.
Elegantly relentless.
Come on now, don't you want to join?
Adjective.
Don't you want to join the great religion of fundamentalist Rian
so
Johnsonism?
reserved, but full of energy.
I hate
Hang on.
videos that use language like this that are just all emotional, and it's just like, just say what you mean. Don't.
And it's
don't
also
use flowery language.
unqualified. Like, he's not saying why it's elegant. It just is elegant. It's not qualifying anything to establish these words, and so it's just hollow fluff. It's void language right here that's not implying anything of true substance. And sorry, just this comment here. His favorite detail is Kylo Ren's lightsaber leaving marks all over the ground. I mean, if the lightsaber connects with the ground, it should leave a mark. That's the bare minimum. That's like you're saying, I'm so glad that they did the bare minimum standard of what a lightsaber should do when it interacts with something. That's not something to be happy with or glad about.
You have to understand, though, that the marks on the ground represent Kylo Ren's troubled soul.
People would unironically argue that. They'd say he's fighting more like erratically and like hitting the ground where Rey's more in control and somber. It's just, these people reach so hard in videos like this. It's just, what are you gonna do?
It'd be one thing if it was you can kind of make connections, but everyone does that. Like, everyone hits. If you hit the ground with a lightsaber, you're going to leave a mark. It's just a thing that happens.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a basic thing. And if they didn't do that, that would be unacceptable. That would be another dumb thing that they failed in this. The fact that they're doing the bare minimum and they don't achieve the bare minimum because daggers are still disappearing, but with the lightsaber interaction that they're achieving the bare minimum, that's not something that should be praised. It's like it should be expected.
Maybe that's the genius of Rian Johnson, though. You would expect that a scene like this would be, he would put every effort into his maximum effort, but he put the minimum amount. This subverts our expectations.
Dang, he's so
Can I just
good.
point out that
So
this
good.
guy taunted us, saying, "Oh, that's all you got."
Yeah, what has he got? He's got nothing.
Yeah, you should bring a little something more to the table if you're saying like we didn't do anything to your arguments. You're like,
Not
this
an
video
attack.
isn't doing much for us, but
It's not an attack on him personally, but dude, like, if you want to come on, if you're watching this, if you want to come on, we can have a discussion and talk, because these are not good arguments. You need to make better arguments and need to reference things that are actually in the scene rather than spend half your video talking about shot.
yeah, I was about to say, like, maybe he can just bring across his points better in just one-on-one conversation rather than in his video. But like, as far as the video is going, like, you're not communicating your points very well.
When we've seen they can't move, they can't be wrong. They're just too entrenched. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he moved an inch on his points. But as far as we've seen from all of his creators, they're just too entrenched, and they have too much at stake, apparently, in their point of view on these movies, that they can't really concede anything.
I would like to hear an off-the-cuff conversation of his opinions just to see how well they stick and how well they last from his video. Because this sounds like a script, and it sounds like it's coming from the heart, but there's no thought put into it. It's just this emotional outburst. And trying to be technical without being intelligent is sort of like, look how beautiful this shot is. See how when I paused it, you have this light coming? It's like, yeah, it's a light source. Why is it attractive? Tell me. And they don't go into that.
They had an excellent special effects.
I made a video about like visual effects, and I spent the half of that video talking purely about something that's only loosely related, like the shot work itself. If I didn't talk about what kind of software, what rendering, what techniques I used to build it, all these other things, like what kind of simulation did I use, what software did I use to do that simulation. And I just said, oh, look, oh, here's a shot. Oh, look, here's another shot. Oh, look, the camera spins. Oh, look, it does that. It's like, no, that's not how you make a video, especially if you're on a subject like a fight.
Okay, I have 2 super chats. We're going to keep going, okay? Punished Berserker, thank you again, sir. AT, my favorite part of my meal is that it was served on a plate. Okay, that's...
That pretty much sums this up. It's like,
My favorite part.
it's beautiful. It's like,
That is a beautiful analogy.
That is perfection right
We love
there.
the
Plate
food
was
analogies here.
beautiful.
We love
The
the food
genius.
analogies. Thank you, sir. That was brilliant.
You don't understand the genius of the chef. He put my food on a plate. Now that's genius.
And the plate had such a beautiful pattern on it. It made the...
It's a very lovely looking plate too.
And
That's
the
the
second
absolute
super chat
genius.
from Joe
The
Crazy.
food was terrible, but it was on a plate that looked nice.
Thank you, sir. My little cousin's play fighting with foam swords is probably more elegant than this scene. Well, it's possible. We never know how genius your cousins are. We don't know, but they could have a dad who's very enthusiastic about swords. We don't know.
Ooh, wonder what that reference is.
I used to play fight with swords too. Okay.
Oh, it's the best fun. That's what I got.
Yeah, I have a
that's what got me
lightsaber. I'm not ashamed to admit that I've used it to fight people before and whack them over the head.
Well, we all had that phase, you know, Shiny.
started. Some of us never grew out of it.
That is true.
Perform what's happening in front of our eyeballs. Nothing is being saved by the edit. Rian Johnson isn't trying to hide anything with tricky, fast-paced cuts. He wants us.
Hang on! Hang on!
Is trying to hide all of this bad things. Like,
I don't know,
what
man.
about the
He's
disappearing
right,
knife that you
right.
literally
Like,
acknowledged?
exactly. Ryan Johnson isn't trying to hide the terrible choreography and is trying to say it makes it brilliant, even though he's showing how bad like if he actually tried to hide how bad the choreography was with some close angle shots and stuff like that, it might have made this fight scene less worse. It wouldn't have redeemed it by any measure. But is he actually trying to say here the fact that you can see how crap the fight scene is makes it a great fight scene?
That's the brilliance of Ryan Johnson. That makes him a movie genius.
I would say that in a sense, Ryan Johnson is trying to hide all of the terrible parts in his editing, because if you know, I'm pretty sure all of us here watched this film and thought, "Oh, look, this is a pretty flashy fight scene. It looks good," but it's only good on the surface level. When you stop and actually start looking at it, that's when it starts to fall apart. It crumbles.
Yeah, I agree. When I first watched it, I was just, letting myself be engrossed and, in like just watching the movement, right? Without breaking things down in detail. But you're right. As soon as you do that, it takes half a second for you to realize, wow, oh no, oh no, what's going on?
Yeah, it's very similar to the Blaviken fight where it looks flashy and great, and then you actually stop and think, wait a second, did he just decapitate a guy through a doorway? Like, how the heck? How does that even work?
Exactly. And what's interesting about the Blaviken fight scene is that you're right. There are some really bad, actual movements in terms of logical swordsmanship and stuff. Yet that one can still be mildly redeemed because of the great camera work. Okay, and that some of the movements are technically complex, if not, viable in actual combat. And so that does make it visually pleasing, like a dance. And so there are things that can make it mildly redeemable, but you get nothing like that in this in Last Jedi. Like, not at all.
Yeah, one thing that Shiny and I always make jokes about is the hilt lightsaber from Kylo. It doesn't actually function as a proper hilt. So we always if anyone actually fights this guy properly as a sword would, just snap those two hilts
It's going to go
off.
straight through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lightsaber's going to go straight through it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the argument is where does the energy beam originate? If the energy beam actually exists a couple of centimeters or inches into that, projection point.
Well,
could
there is a
cut
part
through
of the lightsaber
housing.
that is the emitter, and I would assume the emitter is from the lightsabers I've seen, it's always at the end where the blade is being generated. So unless it's different with this one specific blade, then also wouldn't it have been broken off? Like that area, why would you even put metal there if it was surrounding a blade? And the metal there would have been broken by any kind of blade which is used to block.
Yeah, all good questions. All good questions.
Here's a super chat from Arc Pegasus 2002, and this was a question I believe directed at Glib. Which Harry Carey film was he talking about having the best sword fight, the 1962 or the 2011 version?
62 for sure.
Oh, the original.
But I like I think Takeshi Kitano did that one, or Miike did that one. I think. Yeah. Miike did Harakiri, and then Kitano did Zatoichi, the remake. It's hard to get those not mixed up in my brain. But yeah, the 62 one is amazing.
You know, if he doesn't talk about the choreography at all, he's basically admitting that he liked it because Ryan Johnson put his meal on the plate, and the plate looked very good, but the food was terrible.
Oh man, it'll be hilarious if he doesn't mention the choreography. I mean,
he better. He's in a lot of trouble.
Well, he's showing the choreography, how they practiced it, so that's good, right?
He's just saying that it was brilliant because he's not hiding anything.
that was one of the most bizarre arguments yet. Like, I was like, what?
Here's a super chat from Lord Captain Commander Dunn of the Queen's Guard. Thank you, sir. Seen Netflix Altered Carbon? Awesome murder mystery. You know what? I haven't. And I'm a big fan of those kinds of stories that are in the future and have mysteries in them, and I still have not watched it.
I've heard good things about it, but I haven't seen it myself. I just know the general...
I just heard it was really good also.
Okay, I've seen it. Am I the only person that's seen it?
Glib, you're the man. You got
it. So it starts out strong. The first episode is really good. The second episode is really good. And then it gets really disappointing by the end of it. It's still worth your time. You have to take the low quality effects with a grain of salt. They have one really good set, and then the rest of it they make do. There's like apparently hundreds of years in the future where there's, you can transfer your consciousness into a different sleeve, but they still have to use chain link fences for some reason. So it's a little bit, you know what I mean, in the sci-fi cost.
So if we were to compare it to, say, let's say The Expanse, which is more worth your time?
The Expanse is a better show. By far, it has way more to work with. But once you've watched The Expanse, check out Altered Carbon. You'll get a kind of similar experience. And I really, really think that Joel Kinnaman and then the concept of different people playing the same character. Like there's 3 different actors for the main character. Really interesting concept. And all of the actors do a really good job as the main character. But it's so like the good parts are really good and the bad parts are awful. So take it with a grain of salt. That's why when people say it's good, it's because of the ideas, not because of the execution.
Okay, that's kind of the opposite of The Last Jedi, whereas there's all kinds of bad parts, and we have to pick apart some things that are actually good bad parts, and which are actually really bad parts.
No, you mean some parts of it are less shitty than others.
There we go. Thank you.
It's good.
It's enjoyable. It's an overall enjoyable experience with very harsh flaws that glare in your face, as opposed to a product that's bad and then you're trying to find something good in it.
If you turn your brain off, you can enjoy it, certainly. If you're one of those people who just likes to enjoy their films, because there are people out there who just want to enjoy a film and they don't enjoy it more if they think about it and let it sort of like marinate in their head. If it's, what makes them enjoy a film, if it's applies to certain rules and logic and such.
That's kind of how I enjoy Picard.
Let's not change
much
topics,
better than that. I'm just gonna say though, as a final, it's definitely worth checking out if you're a science fiction fan that likes the idea of something and being able to think about it. It's not dumb science fiction; it's just dumb television production.
Look, LIteratureDevil, you should know that you don't get me started about Picard. You just don't. You're going to be here for like another 12 hours with a rant.
I didn't see season 2, so I have no idea anything about that. I'm only talking about season 1.
Our time wisely with Shad on board, so we got to keep.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. That's okay.
March on.
And you to watch the whole frame while the actors carry out the performance. Now, one little drawback to this way of putting a fight sequence together is that the long shot takes are rehearsed over and over and over again to avoid inconsistencies. And this can result in a fight that has a bit of dancing, for a lack of a better word. At a certain point, it is a dance because you automatically begin moving into the next position without even thinking about it. I call it the half-second ahead issue. I definitely notice it in every prequel film, and I notice it in this film as well. But where this...
So it's interesting. He is pointing out a problem, right? And so good on him for pointing it out. It's not a huge problem though. It doesn't even come close to how big the problems are when it comes to just the actual sequence of movements that the actors are doing. The fact that one might react before another moves to get into position, that's nowhere near as big a problem as, say, when Daisy Ridley misses her mark completely, forcing the stuntmen to have to miss their attacks completely, and then getting out of time and have them to just flail around doing nothing. And so you're missing a lot of other flaws here, mate. Is I guess my point.
Movie blows the rest out of the water is when it comes to how the shots are composed and how Steve Yedlin and Ryan chose to follow the action. Every individual frame is almost perfectly composed throughout the fight. That's insane.
Oh no, he's describing the plate. He's just describing how great the plate is.
The rule of thirds. Here we go.
I was about to say if he's maybe he'll go into that more. I don't think those shots correlate.
I learned the rules of three in the first year of fucking media.
I was about to say it's very
over this. It's basic.
Didn't I mention it earlier?
Yeah, you just did. You did,
yeah.
Sir. Yes.
So it's like it goes back to Shad's point, where it's like he's just going, "Look at this! How they hit the standard. It's so average. It's so okay, guys."
Mr. Genius of Ryan Johnson once again taking us for a ride. We would expect that he would put so much effort and so much skill into the shot, but he went bare minimum, and we were not expecting that.
Here's a
totally unbridled, passable.
Unbridled.
And in the context of his argument, he is literally saying, like, he pointed out a flaw in the choreography, and that's just one, and a minor one compared to the drastically horrible, crap you can find when you look at the choreography. So he's pointing out one flaw in the choreography and is trying to say that it is fixed by the camera work. And it's like, no, it doesn't fix it at all. That's still a massive problem.
Well, have you guys seen the every frame of painting framing video that's like talking all about this? They use Drive as an example of it. And what's great about Drive is that when you split the frame, you can tell multiple different stories depending on where your eye is going to be going. So you can have one story going on between two characters looking at each other at the top of the frame, and then in the bottom of the frame you can have the characters' hands, and they're showing a different story. So you can have two things happening at once. There's no layered complexity to any of these frames. It's just Yedlin trying to find a nice shot that's going to complement the last shot, which is standard. The issue is that the guy that is the cinematographer for Last Jedi has never made an action movie, really, before this. Before this, it was Looper. That's the level of action quality we're going to get. So there's no style to it. It just meets at the very least, the only thing that I'm going to give it credit for is that when there's an action sequence sometimes between two characters that are close to each other, it's at a 45-degree angle, which is where Donnie Yen would put like a hit. Like it's the perfect way to get the full impact of a fake hit on somebody is to have it at the angle. So when the character's pulling in Rey or whatever with the broken staff or whatever that has like I don't even know what it is. It's so stupid. But the little chain thing, that has the right framing for that kind of shot. Everything else is just a okay frame. There's nothing special.
Yeah, I guess as Shadiversity said, he's essentially pointing out a flaw in the meal, but it's saying that it's fixed because the plate is so beautiful. It's a nice plate. I paid $30 for this, but the plate was really nice.
Here's an aside from Mr. Random Thoughts. Thank you, sir. Is this fight worse than the Dooku fight in Episode 2? And I gotta remind myself which fight that was. I think there was a few. Was that the fight with
Kenobi and Anakin?
Yeah, and then Yoda comes in to fight him as well. Right. So
I thought that was cool. I don't know what was bad about that.
I enjoy that fight for the most part. Like, what did you think of that fight, Chad? From what you remember, at least.
I need to go back. It's not as good. Not nearly as good as of course, Revenge of the Sith, Anakin. They really stepped it up in Anakin versus Obi-Wan, and obviously so because it's such an epic moment in the saga. I think it was more basic. I mean, it's always fun when Yoda comes in, and trying to break down Yoda's style is going to be interesting but I haven't really looked at it with a critical eye, honestly. So I need to go back.
All right. I enjoyed it, honestly. I don't know about you guys.
So, just I'm kind of surprised by this. Like, Sophistic Autistic did a pixel drawing of me.
Yeah, he does a lot of Mega Man caricatures. It's true.
That's good.
Pretty good.
I'm honored. That's my first fan art.
Thank you, Sophistic. That's what you're known for, sir. And keep on trucking, man. You're good at your job. And like me, I have to keep on trucking too. So let's keep going.
I think what Ryan and Steve were trying to achieve with this shot and entire sequence is to make the audience feel the ebb and flow of the fight exactly how the characters would. Start on wide shots to establish space and...
That's still the most bare minimum thing you would want to achieve in a fight scene. That's not a compliment.
Has anyone seen Perfume, Story of a Serial Killer?
No.
It's really interesting story. It's a really interesting movie. I like it a lot. But at the end, there is for lack of a better phrase, a big orgy scene. Basically he finds the perfect perfume that just illuminates, ignites your carnal desires. And at the very end, there is a big orgy scene where he's standing on a stage and everyone is around him is just getting down with each other. But the thing is that the orgy scene is what is going on here. What he thinks is going on here is that because they brought in a actual choreographer, a dance choreographer to kind of play out the scene, because it's not about the sex. It's about how they're moving, the fluidity of how everyone is moving.
Oh, right.
There's nothing graphic about it. Yeah, and they brought in there so that everyone can see it. It goes with the emotion of the scene. If you have to see it to really get the full grasp of it, but it goes with the emotion of the scene, and that he finally achieves that. Jean-Baptiste Grenouille finally achieves what he's been searching for throughout most of this movie, only to find out that everything he's been searching for was a lie. This wasn't actually true, and that he actually killed the thing he loved. And that scene is so interesting because of the movement. They got the movement just right. It's like a flowing ocean of people and flesh, and I think that's what he's trying to get here, is that they did the same thing here. But if you go and look at that scene and compare it to this, not even the same league, it's not even the same game. It's a totally different sport.
Well, here's a super chat from Mr. Dennis Marquez. Literature Devil, I've read the book. It's awesome. Well, okay. The books are usually better than the movie version. So.
Oh, you mean Perfume?
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
Fantastic. I think even what's his name? I didn't blanking on the name, but the singer for Nirvana. What's the lead singer from Nirvana?
Oh, Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain. I think he was the one who read Perfume also, and he really kind of got attached to, or was able to relate with Jean-Baptiste Grenouille's sense of isolation. It's excellent stuff.
It's an interesting story. I'll give it that much.
Sounds cool.
Joe, a sense of movement. Begin tracking with our hero.
There he is, the block with the lightsaber.
Yeah.
Love it.
Put that all in your gauntlets. My hands cannot be cut off.
Give that to all the stormtroopers. Heck, forget the Praetorian Guards. Give it to everyone.
So is the guy stabbed in the stomach or something? Because what? So, my hands are invincible. My vital organs, my only weakness. How did you know?
Yeah, he gets stabbed in the back right after, and it's so hilarious. He I don't know what his plan is. He just goes into his arms. He's like, "Oh yeah," and then gets stabbed in the back. He's like, "What did you think was going to happen other than that?"
Heroes as they dominate the fight, but then dolly in tight as things become more troublesome for our characters until we are right up in their faces at their most vulnerable. It makes us feel vulnerable as we watch it happen, and it works. So many variables are at play in the filming of this scene that honestly, I find it exhausting to think about. Timing is so key when long takes are priority. If you watch the documentary on The Last Jedi called The Director and the Jedi, there are some really interesting bits about how much effort it took to make just this sequence. There was 6 months of rehearsal for this fight. Ryan Johnson said that he loved...
Dang it, I was trying to pause it.
6 months.
6 months of rehearsal.
That's like...
Hey, look. Give me 6 months and a cast of people, and I don't know, maybe some of you guys, and I could come up with something better.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't the
Ryan
actor's fault, though.
Johnson. This is like the most perfect analogy for filmmaking constipation, where they put a lot of effort in to just push out a crap.
Very nice.
God, it's
Very
just-
nice.
It's so painful. Like, just look at how much money has been sunk into this, how much effort and talent by parts of people like the visual effects artists and the people who work in sound, people who work behind the camera that you'll never ever see, will never get any kind of credit. The amount of effort they've poured into this to make it all beautiful and amazing, and it's all just ruined by such incompetence.
It's amazing, and so hey, like he's trying to say, because people put effort into it, it makes it good. And no, that doesn't mean anything. I can spend hours, just throwing
Doing a
up on a
doodle.
canvas. It doesn't mean it's going to be, the Mona Lisa. It's like, don't like the
So
argument.
essentially, his delicious meal gave him food poisoning, but the plate they got from Walmart was so beautiful in his opinion. The beautiful plate. It gave me food poisoning.
No. The plate took 6 months to make.
The
meal, I don't know, a few minutes.
And what's hilarious, the only commentary he's actually mentioned on the choreography was a negative. He pointed out a flaw in it.
One little flaw.
But he hasn't been able to say a single positive thing about the choreography up to this point.
One little choreographical flaw, but the plate was beautiful.
Here's a positive little aside from the super chat. Owlet Fredo's bookshelf, thank you, sir. Just bought your book, Shad. I expect great things. Oh, isn't that nice?
Awesome.
Thank you, sir. I hope you enjoy it. You're in for a wild ride, sir.
Hey, we're at 10 seconds. What happened to the?
That was me again. I tried to buzz it.
Damn it, Shad.
Start all over again.
Sorry.
You're so excited about this fight scene, Shad.
Right, from
know.
the top now.
You gotta do this again. You gotta go over it one more
Let's watch
time.
this whole thing again. I need to know how average the camera works.
In their faces at their most vulnerable. It makes us feel vulnerable as we watch it happen, and it works. So many variables are at play in the filming of this scene that honestly, I find it exhausting to think about. Timing is so key when long takes are priority.
Timing was
If you
horrible
watch
in
the
this fight scene.
documentary on The Last Jedi called The Director and the Jedi, there are some really
Oh, we need to
interesting
see
bits
this.
about how much effort it took to make just this.
I've heard it.
We should do it on another one of the movie nights. Like, have
so
a
much
movie
in
night
this
where we watch behind the scenes.
It's embarrassing. It's so embarrassing to see the people around him question.
Oh.
It's not like the George Lucas takes where it's all arguing and frustration.
Well, the George Lucas takes are transparent. It's like, oh, you can see exactly where he had the problem. With the Ryan Johnson one, there's a few moments where it just creeps out where he says like, I don't know what I'm doing or whatever, and it's embarrassing. But then there's the Disney spin on it, and then if you compare that to the TFA behind the scenes, which is all gloss and no content,
Showing you don't know what you're doing is one of the worst things you could possibly do while directing, because the actors need to know that you're confident, and you need to kind of express this confidence and need to like clear communication. I remember watching some interview about I can't remember the guy who played Tom Paris in Voyager, but he directed a couple of the episodes, and he said that when it comes to directing, you have to be very firm with how you're handling your actors, and you need to make clear choices. So, example, if someone says, "Oh, you want the red light or the blue light?" Even if you don't know, you say, "Oh, I want the red light," because you can always go back later. And to say, "Well, I don't really know," is going to kind of make the actors and the people around you start to doubt if you have the right vision in your head.
So, is that something Ryan Johnson actually said? He said, "I don't know what I'm doing," because
there's
I
a
thought
moment where
someone
he
said-
says something like that.
'Cause
There's a
if he
moment where
does-
he's sitting there,
wow,
and he's like,
cruel
he's smart.
words were never spoken.
He doesn't say exactly that. It's a paraphrase, but that's the impact of it.
Going by the movie The Disaster Artist, does that mean Tommy Wiseau is technically a better director than Ryan Johnson?
He knew what he wanted to do at least. Or make a real movie.
He made an infamously terrible movie that everyone loves because of how bad it was. But he had the confidence, he had the firm decision-making skills, all that stuff.
Like, there's 3 minutes left in this video, and he still hasn't talked about the actual fighting. We need to actually go over this scene. Or actually, no, just go to Shad's video. We don't have to do this scene
I
again.
think there is
Shad
another
did all that for
YouTuber
us.
out there who did a better job talking about the fight scene and how much they loved it. So
I don't mind someone like coming to us with a video saying, and they actually talk about like the choreography, and then we can have a discussion. But there's very little discussion we can actually make here because he's not talking about the actual fighting.
Well, yeah, he's mentioned it once, and it was a flaw that I also agree with. But so it's...
So here's a super chat from Constantine. Thank you, sir. I've seen Star Wars fan films with better choreography than this. And I agree. There is a fan film called Dark Jedi. I mentioned it before. It's 5 minutes long. It's German. So the acting and the actual dialogue is kind of pointless, but don't worry about that. The fight scene is very frenetic and fast, and that's, I would have loved to get Shad to talk about that because it's so quick. You'd have to like slow it down.
We're gonna watch that after this.
Well, let's get through this video then.
We might, yeah.
We can kill this video.
We can kill this video right now.
Let's do it, boys.
If 8080 chat comes at us again, it's like, oh, that all you got. If he does that again, like, I don't see how he can come at us with that again.
Well, we're gonna find out Friday with part 2. So, the joys. Okay, let's keep going.
Sequence. There was 6 months of rehearsal for this fight. Ryan Johnson said that he loved
doesn't
the
make it
idea
good.
of shooting this like the fight scenes that he grew up loving. Like a Jackie Chan movie where you can throw on a wide angle lens and just follow the
This is nothing like a Jackie Chan fight scene. Don't even compare it.
There is no compare.
Oh,
This is awful. It's like, this crayon drawing I did is good because the Mona Lisa exists. It's just like that. Made the exact same way. Took me just the same amount of time as the Mona Lisa to create. So therefore, it's just as good.
that's a good analogy because wow.
The best analogy of today is like this guy is happy, but more happy about the plate his meals being served on than the actual.
Yeah, it's a terrible meal, but look at the plate. I mean, it's fantastic.
Dear God, look at the plate.
It's a craftsmanship on this plate. I mean, it's the best.
Just throws the food away. Just like, oh, look, here's the food. Throw it away. Oh, look at it.
This place is so significantly magnificent.
character around. He wants the actors to be really doing the performance over some stunt double, and thankfully, it paid off as far as I'm concerned. This mindset is awesome. Get it done in front of the camera with the real actors.
That's really slick. Thankfully, it paid off as far as I'm concerned. Anyway.
How did it pay off? You haven't said it.
Yes.
Explain what in any mate. Wait.
He needs to talk about this. He needs to reference and he needs to explain. He needs to create some kind of discussion and talk around this, but he's not.
It paid off because
This
it
is how
exists.
I feel. Oh, I think so. Maybe.
Yeah. If anything, the slow motion and wide angles that Ryan Johnson uses only serves to highlight the problems in the fight scene. No, doesn't make it better in any measure. And so it's the reverse of what he's saying.
I'm still trying to get over the 6 months. I just thinking about like month 1 training, month 2 okay, actual testing with props, month 3 like when does anyone just go, hey, you know what, maybe this entire thing does not work very well. Maybe the kick where I hit 3 people at once is, you know, a little hard to believe. Dropping the sword and not using my force powers to pick it up, you know, maybe. No.
That's my question. How did no one think, again, going back to what I was talking about earlier, where, you know, Rey ends up kicking one person and 3 people get kicked and fall backwards, even though one of them is kicked. How did no one just stop and think? Why did no one think? Why did no one question why this other guy wasn't using his other hand? Why did no one question any of these things?
That's the main question about all 3 of these movies. Why did no one think? Why can't people just think? But that one where she kicks one guy and knocks over 3 people, that one's explainable because she's a Mary Sue. Obviously, she just destroys everyone with one kick. That makes sense. If she's a Mary Sue.
Here's a super chat from Seeking Origin. Thank you, sir. If Rian Johnson just wanted to be subversive, why not have Rey killed by Kylo, whose hand is physically forced by Snoke, causing Kylo to turn to the Republic for help? Well, there's a twist I never thought of, that he actually kills Rey.
I really wish Rian Johnson would have subverted our expectations when he was tasked with making a Star Wars movie by not making one. I would not have expected that.
Well, the killing
I
of
wouldn't
Rey
have expected that when the title crawl just kind of starts, there's a big middle finger that just kind of goes up the screen, and then by the time it ends, like the lights start coming on in the cinema. It's like, that was the movie, folks.
Oh, you mean The Last Jedi, the movie he already did?
Well, the idea of having Kylo become the good guy by killing the good guy
that would be interesting.
That would be a big twist.
That'd be pretty interesting.
At this point, with these films, were they just burning money?
Yes.
Like, did Rian Johnson just kind of sit there,
Yes.
like lighting like cigars with like flames, inflated dollar bills?
If I were to believe that the Canto Bight casino set was over 30 million, I think that was the report. You can imagine what the rest of the movie was cost. So
Why? It's so painful because there are so many better movies that don't even have 1 million in budget, and they somehow manage to end up looking better. And even sci-fi films that look better. There are TV shows with like less than 1 million in their episode budget, and they still do it better. How?
I keep thinking, because your accent of the Sean Connery movie First Night, where he goes "Why?" screaming at the crucifix. No, okay, just me. All right, super chat again. Thank you, Sir Non Vitae Rex. All right, you guys seen Into the Badlands? It's post-apocalyptic martial arts action show on AMC. I've never heard of that.
I saw the first episode. It was pretty interesting, pretty good. It hooked my attention for a little bit.
So, Shad, aren't you happy I invited you onto this Smudcast? Aren't you happy you're here?
Of course I am. I mean, it has been tremendously enjoyable thus far. So,
Fantastic.
I mean, the aneurysm aside, it's been wonderful.
Okay, that's the good point. That's the main point. He's having a good time. Okay.
Oh, we're all having a good
It's
time.
because of the aneurysm. Who knows?
Now, I understand that this isn't something which every film will be capable of. So we can't just say, yeah, do everything in front of the camera because it's cool. But it would be nice to hear more often that a director chose a harder path than a more familiar and perhaps easier route of using doubles, clever editing, CGI to make a sequence work. Now, plenty of videos exist.
Really?
The sequence doesn't work. Don't just say it works and then not explain why.
Hey, come on, guys. It's so genius. I mean, you could have expected Rian Johnson to use doubles and actual effort and CGI to make a good scene, but he didn't do any of that.
What do you need doubles for? I don't get, like, what are they doing that's dangerous?
Okay, so yeah, especially in this scene, but when it comes to
lightsabers real?
In other films, I can understand why you need doubles, because there's certain people jumping off buildings, they're doing crazy rolls and flips, and one of them falls off at some point, and all kinds of crazy shit. But there's no kind of crazy shit here.
Like, I understand if the swords were actual swords, like pieces of metal. These are pieces of plastic and wood. And yeah, they could hurt and they could poke your eye out, and I totally understand that. You might want to get a double, but if you practice for 6 months...
I know, and for it to be so bad at the end, like, because it's trying to say that it's better that they didn't use doubles, actually knew how to use a sword at some point. It's like, no, that actually would have made a fight scene a bit better if they had people who knew what they were doing some of the moves at least.
So when it comes to the prequels, like Ewan McGregor and I've forgotten the guy who played Anakin already. Hayden Christensen, that's it. They had to go through so much training and practice. I would say probably more training and practice than like Rey and Kylo and Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver probably ended up doing. And that is not a defense of the film or the fight scenes itself. That's just one of the aspects that makes the scenes and fights so impressive. The fact that they've, done it themselves.
Well, it's
all that kind of training that's gone into it. There's even Ewan McGregor,
to build on that.
TV, and he did a couple of flips not flips, but he flicked the lightsaber around and did some crazy tricks with the lightsaber just from what he remembered on filming.
Yeah, and to build on that, it isn't necessarily that the amount of training they did, it's that they actually were able to build enough skill to execute it. And if they were able to do that in a week or 5 months, the fact that they got to a point that they could do these things, that's the point to be, compliment them on, right? Because Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor, they can do those moves. Like Hayden Christensen was doing some fairly complex, flourishes that take a bit to nail down, and he pulled them off brilliantly. And so that's, I think, the point that we need to praise them for. And because the evidence here, if they tried so hard on The Last Jedi to achieve such a poor standard, I don't care how long they, strained to push out that turd, it's still a turd. All right.
Here's a super chat from Joe Crazy. Just because you did things the hard way doesn't mean it's going to work. All it does is make you look stupid. Now, I don't think Johnson did it the hard way. He did it the long way, which means a lot of money and a lot of time. But hard to me means intricate, complicated, lots of maneuvers, lots of different stunts, lots of different things happening. All we have is what? A guy falling down a turbine thing. We have a cloth set on fire, which I think is CGI. And
well, it definitely would be. They're not going to light a real giant cloth like that.
Yeah.
For a start, I don't think a real cloth would go and fire that quickly.
It was lit with kerosene, like dipped in kerosene, the whole thing.
It's red. It's the
the
boobs that catch on fire easy.
The First Order makes sure they lace everything with just gasoline and petrol and everything. Yeah, that's why Kylo Ren's shuttle, his fighter, just went up in flames because the metal's been infused with gasoline.
That's how spaceships work.
I would think doing something the hard way would mean doing it until you get it right or you get a good result. Not just doing it for X amount of time and then taking the least crap result you got. Because, gosh.
Well, it's been 6 months and it still looks terrible, so no one will notice.
Yeah.
We spent 6 months on this. It's got to be good.
Has to be.
I question that if they spent 6 months. I think maybe 6 months while doing other things, definitely, but not 6 months dedicated to actually doing this. Like maybe on and off with certain practice and certain shooting. Maybe they spent only like a single month actually physically recording and shooting all the shots.
Very possible. Yeah, very possible.
Which rip this sequence to shreds. And it's all for various reasons, and most of them are dumb. There is so much to learn from watching this battle sequence.
Oh, I hope
I
hope he's referring to my video.
You hear that?
I hope he's referring to my video.
I hope so too.
I think this was before your video came out, so hopefully. But there's people who have picked apart the choreography before. It's like
I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people.
And they're dumb. This is just dumb. Okay?
It's dumb.
When I first saw the movie in the theater, I saw the moment where Kylo Ren just decides to stab his lightsaber into the ground. And I'm like, why did he do that? And that was my first time viewing it. There was no freeze framing. There was no one else pointing it out to me right there. I was like, why? Just why? Why the fuck would you stab your lightsaber into the ground?
And then they all go to attack the lightsaber in the ground rather than...
Yeah.
He literally targets the lightsaber rather than his legs.
His head is wide open, and the guy has his weapon raised in a high position, and so it's like the golden open shot to just take off his head, and then he swings it down into the lightsaber.
And I'm like, there's also a moment where Rey is flailing her lightsaber about, and her legs are kind of like swinging around wildly. It would be difficult for me to point it out from memory because I don't have like the time code to the clip or whatever. But I was just thinking, like, how the fuck is the guard losing against her? Because you're fighting. If we're supposed to believe that these Praetorian guards are like the most elite fighters chosen specifically to protect Snoke, which is, that's a reasonable thing to assume. You would think that these guys would be able to easily take out someone who's an untrained, self-taught fighter. You know what I mean? It's just, it's dumb.
By the way, welcome to the Smudcast there, Southpaw. Good to have you.
Thank you very much. I hope that I sound all right. I know that sometimes
Well, your mic sounds like complete garbage at the moment. Just letting you know, mate.
We don't talk about the mic.
That's understandable because I'm on mobile right now.
Oh.
That makes sense.
There we go.
Yeah. So in about 20 minutes, I'll be at a laptop and I'll have my better mic. So
I think we're almost done this video, but we're going to keep going with you on the line, if that's okay.
What you said was spot on, though, because what you said was spot on, though, because how would she be able to defeat all these supposedly elite soldiers on her own? And what you said would make sense, however, if she wasn't a Mary Sue. But she is a Mary Sue.
I would say that she and Kylo could probably take them all on if they were using the Force, but purely based on combat through melee combat, I don't think they would win, purely because these are supposed to be the elite of the elite. Maybe Kylo could handle one or two, but the Force abilities they have are their serious advantage. It's one of the major parts of being a Force user, and they don't use the Force in the entire fight.
It's really strange because The Force Awakens had Finn fight against Kylo Ren, and he got his ass kicked because Kylo Ren is a Force user and Finn wasn't, at least at the time, if we're to go ahead and agree that he's Force sensitive now. But this is the one fight in the series outside of that where it's Force users against non-Force users. As far as we know, they don't confirm that the Praetorian Guards are Force sensitive themselves, and somehow they're holding their own against Kylo Ren and Rey for a little bit because Kylo and Rey aren't using the Force.
Hold on. Did we say we expected them to be the elite?
Well, it wouldn't be
Praetorian Guards, the
obviously
people protecting the most important part of the First Order.
So obviously, since we expected them to be the elite, the best of the best, Ryan Johnson. Remember, there's Ryan Johnson behind the wheel. Obviously, for some reason, the First Order apparently what they do is they put the rookies in the station of Praetorian. Expectations subverted.
Honestly, Gary, Jeff, look, we need some more people to fill in the ranks. So you need to stand in this room, in this armor, and look really intimidating. Don't worry, you won't actually have to fight.
But can I spin like a ballerina? Can I do that?
And then they all just kind of look around as Kylo Ren kills Snoke. It's oh, what the fuck do we do? We never trained for this.
I guess we kill him or something. They're all rookies. So that would subvert our expectations.
He can't do that, can he?
Because
something.
Obviously, as we learned before, because our expectations were subverted, because the rookies are not elite warriors, this scene is genius.
Well, the way that training works in the sequel trilogy is the more that you have, the worse of a combatant you are. Because the one time that Rey loses, arguably in a fight against Kylo, is in The Rise of Skywalker after she's done about a year of training. So it's she actually had a better chance against Kylo when she was untrained than she had against him when she was trained.
Well, I mean, if Snoke really wanted some, good trained guys backing him up, that stormtrooper that takes on Finn when Finn has the lightsaber in The Force Awakens, he did pretty darn good. He beat Finn. It's hire that guy. That stormtrooper seemed to know what he was doing.
Yeah, because Finn wasn't able to defeat that random stormtrooper, but then he was able to defeat Captain Phasma, and so it's a random stormtrooper is a better fighter than Captain Phasma.
Well, he had a cattle prod, so I think it's a ninja rule. Remember that from the trope. If you have 1,000 ninjas, then one guy can take them all on. But if he fights 999 of them and there's one left, then that ninja is almost invincible.
Yeah, it's the final boss principle.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
Detriment of a disappearing blade, or the sentiments of some random stuntman. This scene is a demonstration on how to make something feel larger than.
oh, he's trying to discredit the stuntmen who have criticized this.
Oh,
And it's like,
absolutely.
did he just say just random sentiments from a bunch of stuntmen? Like, don't listen. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, that's a big defense in this world, in this side of YouTube, or the side of the defense of The Last Jedi. That's a huge one. They dismiss everything that is significant in the destruction of the movie they love.
Oh my goodness. What
We
disingenuous.
saw this in the beginning when you said we just dismissed the whole blade disappearing thing.
It's like,
It doesn't
you
matter
can't
on
dismiss
their
that.
status. As long as they are actually coming out with arguments and referencing why, it doesn't matter if they're stuntmen or not. They are saying something and they are pointing into it and they are saying, look, this doesn't work. It doesn't matter
Exactly.
what their background is.
Yes,
It matters
agreed
if they're true or false.
Yeah, and what matters is the argument and evidence they're proposing, and the evidence is all there for everyone to see. And when you look at the choreography of this fight scene, it is complete garbage. And he even admits that to an extent, because the only thing he's mentioned about the choreography was a negative. So
The interesting thing is like the one thing I'd say about the fight scene that's well done, it is like the fact that it I don't think that it was as obvious as to how bad it was until like later on when we were able to like sort of rewatch it some more. It's like it's very fast paced and flashy, and it looks impressive if you're not paying that much attention, as opposed to like it could have been worse. There could have been some fights where it's like even if you're viewing it very, very casually, it could be obvious that there's a ton of mistakes here. The one thing I caught was like Kylo stabbing the ground. But yes, it's like the idea of the disappearing knife. My bigger issue, like I have a bigger issue with that part than just the knife being edited out. It's just the fact that he's holding a knife in each hand. He has Rey on the ropes, and then he has a free hand that he could use to kill Rey, and he just forgets that he has a knife in that hand. And again, this harkens back to, are we led to believe, like, are we supposed to believe that these guys are the best trained fighters in the First Order because they're the ones that are tasked with protecting the most important figure of the First Order that we know of, at least? And if that's the case, then why are they making such ridiculous mistakes, such as forgetting that they have a weapon in their free hand that they could use to stab this opponent in the back and kill them, and then win the fight?
Here's 2 super chats. Thank you from Edax. Clearly, the Praetorian were hired as useful idiots. Okay, it's an interesting way of putting it, but okay, I'll let that go. And the second one is from Random Thoughts. This is in response to a previous super chat. He meant the Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Dooku in episode 2, and I believe that's the fight scene where Anakin is more brash, and I think he either grabs 2 lightsabers and starts dual wielding.
Yeah.
I think that's the one.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think
It's
that's
been
a big
so long since I watched episode 2. When it comes to prequels, I just kind of go from 1 to 3. I ignore the second. It doesn't. It's too painful. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere.
It gets everywhere.
Well, I mean, in respect to Anakin, it kind of does. Have you ever been to a beach? Like, you don't take your shoes off, but sand gets in there anywhere. It just gets in your shoes somehow. And if you bring anything else to the beach, you're gonna have sand in it for the rest of your fucking life.
I think we would all be willing to agree that sand is indeed sandy.
So sand finds a way.
We could just have more entertainment referencing films than this video.
Yes, but we must press on because we're almost done.
Yeah, but if those Praetorian guards were hired as useful idiots, they did a really bad job at being useful. They were idiots. That's the useful part.
Well, one of them was just kind of standing around waiting for his turn. So
Texting or something. I don't know what he was doing.
like he just kind of pulls out his phone, like he's like,
Like
"Oh, Lord, look, I'm gonna fight my first Jedi."
No,
Takes
no,
like
he's waiting to
hold
pull
on,
his
wait,
staff
down.
apart into 2 daggers. He's like waiting and waiting and waiting.
It's my turn going to come
like,
up.
oh, this. So cool. I'm gonna have this really cool entrance. I'm going to stand up and I'm gonna take apart my knives.
That's
like,
what he was
why were
doing
the
the
knives
whole time.
apart together in the first place.
That's what he was doing the whole time. He was like, okay, how am I going to do this? go in there. I'm gonna be all cool. I'm gonna rush in. No, they can't do that. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say, stop
really want
there,
to
Jedi. He's like, that's what he's doing.
I
Put together a
want
plan on how
robot
to make his
version
entrance.
of that scene.
It's a much more entertaining comic book concept than it is a movie. Yeah.
And then suddenly it's his turn. Rey's facing him down. Oh, oops! Let everyone else die.
Life, while at the same time keeping things as simple and elegant as possible. If you want to be an editor, study this.
Wow, he's just saying fluff. He's saying words that are not substantiated, qualified, and have real no meaning to it. It's just like, it's larger than life and subtle. And things.
Just because this guy's about to give some advice, say, don't take advice from this guy about being an editor. You know, take an actual course that has to do with editing. Or, you know, watch a video about editing. Don't watch this video. There are plenty more courses free on YouTube. Well, not even course, just tutorials that can teach you how to do better editing.
Here's a super chat from Andrew Clark, kind of in response to what Shiny just said. Studio binder, throne room, cinematography, praise, 7 minutes. There we go. It's just play the video, off we go. No problems. Download, install, praise.
The faster we get this over with, the faster we can watch the German.
Yeah, this is getting really, really lame. So.
Figure out why they didn't cut, and then figure out why they cut. If you want to be a cinematographer, study this scene. Figure out why they did the shots they did, and why they moved and ended up in areas they did as the fight went on. If you want to learn how music cues and bits of action are supposed to line up, study this scene. I'll end this video with my own...
Hey, Glib,
don't study this scene.
Glib, is that a good idea? Should we study this
look
scene?
at this scene.
Study what not to do from this scene, okay, guys?
But he's trying to say, look at this scene to know how things need to follow on from one to another. It's like, that's the most basic, that anyone should be able to figure out. It's like he's trying to inflate something that is so standard and average in the editing of this scene to be phenomenal. And it's not. It's really just passable.
I could probably...
If you want to know how to do dialogue, then study the I Hate Sand scene. Because Anakin looks down. There's another shot where he looks up. He then turns to Padme, and then he delivers his famous line. This is how you do dialogue in cinematography.
I see when Anakin looks down, it's telling us that his soul is conflicted, and that he is turning to the dark side. When he looks up and sees Padme, that is his. It signifies to the audience that this is his one grip to the light. And his soul is cured as long as she is near him.
I think I could probably pay a guy on Fiverr for like $500 to make a better fight scene.
Get two kids fighting in a backyard, and they'll come up with a more convincing fight.
I've trained in Krav Maga for 3 years now. I could do a better fight scene for free.
Well, okay then.
One little nitpick for the entire sequence, because after all, I do have one criticism that I would have definitely brought up in the editing room had I been an editor for The Last Jedi. I would have increased the speed of the fight ever so slightly to get around the visual danciness of a very rehearsed fight sequence. I have a little example prepared right here, kind of, which I sped up in an extremely cheap way, and this is just to get the point across. But that's really it. This entire
but that would have been
throne room
worse.
scene is Ryan Johnson and Steve Yedlin.
All it would be is just trying to hide the poor quality of the choreography. Again, this video is nearly over, and he still hasn't talked about the choreography of the fight scene, the most important part of a fight scene.
Yeah, he's only referenced it once. He's mentioned that some people had reacted before their supposed opponents had gone to threaten them. And that's the only comment he made, and it was a negative.
and
he's not been able to say...
The second one is too slow, so that's another negative.
Oh, too slow.
I would have sped up even more. I would have sped up a lot more. Remember that scene from V for Vendetta where they're around the false Adam Sutler? And it's you're taking the yakety sax. I would have done that with that scene.
This is... You know what's amazing about this throne room battle throne room battle video trying to say it is amazing? The amazing thing about this video is that he's only mentioned the choreography twice, and both of those things were negatives on it. He's only been able to say negative things about the choreography of this whole fight scene. He hasn't been able to mention a single positive element from it. That's amazing.
Here's a super chat from Onesia Jones. Thank you. Finn didn't really beat Phasma. He just hit her in the head, and then the ground gave away, which is very reminiscent of what happened in Episode 7 with Rey actually beating Kylo, and then giant hole in ground, and then
And the ground saved
They
him.
can't have Finn being awesome.
He fell down a
But
chasm of death,
roll
and then the elevator thing helped.
Like you roll a 20 and all of a sudden the ground
Yeah.
fucking tears itself apart. It's like,
Deus Ex
oh look,
Machina comes in. Use a Deus Ex Machina to save our villain from the Mary Sue from Care.
or just kill the villain in this case.
that would have saved us.
Yeah,
a
I guess. I guess that's a fair point. He didn't technically. He didn't actually like best her in combat. He just won, like after she beat him square due to a contrivance. So that definitely improves the movie for me. Certainly.
Finn managed to survive because he rolled a 20 or
I
something.
don't know. I thought "Let's Go Chrome Dome" was pretty dramatic. It was, touching. No, just me. Okay.
The most iconic line in the saga, obviously.
Let's go, Chrome Dome.
Lynn's little masterpiece. But it wouldn't have been as good as it was had Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley not performed everything we saw in front of the camera. And that about does it for
Are you sure about that?
The
You
camera.
didn't say performed well or performed.
No,
just
the camera.
performed.
Just performed. Like,
It's just the act of being on for the camera, performing in front of the camera. That wouldn't have happened. None of this would have happened if they
His
didn't
argument
have
is,
the.
his literal argument is this scene wouldn't have worked out well if it didn't happen.
If they didn't show up to work,
If they didn't show up to work, it wouldn't have
that's
worked
true.
out.
He's
nearly
right.
as well.
It is
What is
true.
this?
I have
What low bar yes, the scene is going to have to cross.
I have a sneaking suspicion that if they got just any stunt doubles that could perform these movements more precisely, more proficiently, with more form and competency, right? And then whether they just use them when the back of their heads are facing the camera, or literally just do the digital thing where they paste Daisy or Adam's face onto their face, right? I have a feeling that actually would have improved this fight scene. Just maybe a little.
maybe it's maybe, but it wouldn't be as it wouldn't have that Ryan Johnson genius in there.
Oh, of course.
Hey, Smud. Andrew Clark said that they misunderstood my super chat. I was giving a video recommendation. Studio Binder's Throne Room Praise has more substance.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let me just copy that down and we'll check it out. That's because I know there are YouTubers out there that do better jobs than this gentleman to explain why.
They do.
They
We
do.
need someone who can actually make arguments and we can discuss, and maybe a video that's longer than 9 minutes and doesn't spend those 9 minutes on everything that doesn't have anything to do with the actual choreography of the fight scene.
No, but you have to understand the genius of the choreography, the genius of the fight scene, because it would have been so much worse if everyone. I mean, it would have been the genius of this fight scene comes in because everyone who was supposed to show up did.
Someone got paid.
It's genius.
It's almost like you're saying
Great analogy.
this fight scene would have been so much worse if they had made it better.
It's honestly,
The plate analogy.
it's honestly like
because when it comes
no.
to
It
this,
actually.
I don't care about I don't care about how my meal is being served. I care about the quality of the meal. So if you just had a single static shot of an amazing fight scene, that would be completely fine by me. It's because it's not the way they're what they're serving it on that matters. It's the actual
Everything
meal itself. And god damn it, Smud, you've turned me into fucking food analogies.
Welcome to the Church of Food.
And with that food analogy,
Well,
we have a super chat that says Joe Crazy. Well, that video has been a nothing burger.
Oh, what was that? You cut out.
Oh, Joe Crazy. He gave a super chat saying, well, that video has been a nothing burger. And
It was kind of just like 8 minutes of fluff.
yeah, we can stop it right here. I don't think he has anything more.
Well, no, we should finish it, but I will say I love food analogies in comparing it. I'm not sure if you guys know of my spaghetti bolaise
Just made me
analogy.
hungry.
I think Food analogies they're top tier when it comes to this stuff.
Wow,
And
sir.
I'm taking on the plate analogy.
We
That's
are
brilliant.
we are the same mind. You have no idea how many food analogies we
As
do.
long as it's not shepherd's pie, then I'm sure we're fine.
Exactly. If I get bloody shepherd's pie when I'm after spaghetti bolognese, I'm gonna.
You should see my latest video. I fixed the mystery box with a cake theory, so it's fantastic.
That's great.
All right, you want to finish this off? We have 30 seconds. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's finish
Let's
it.
do this.
Today's video. Thanks for watching, everybody. And if you can, leave your comments below on how this scene made you feel. What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Totally fine to not like it. However, if you can just leave some constructive feedback onto what you think would have made the scene work better, totally do it. No one is right or wrong here.
Maybe
It's a
choreography.
movie.
Well, I'll give him constructive feedback.
Remember, no one's right or wrong.
AT chat, if you're watching this, look, just go through the actual fighter scene and pull out and reference things that are actually in the fight. And I'm trying to do you a favor here, and I'm giving you constructive criticism. When it comes to your future videos, you need to be able to reference things and explain why they're good. Do not just say they are good and talk about cinematography for 9 minutes. You need to do more than that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. He didn't. He certainly did not establish the camera work to have been. What did he say? Like, restrained. Okay, it might have been
Elegant.
restrained because it was basic, but he also called
The
it
fight
elegant.
scene was
He also
elegant
called it
and
like
energetic and rough or whatever.
yeah, and
or
then but
violent.
his
Rough
whole
and
thing was
colors,
that
it's
it was
everywhere.
brilliant. That the camera work was brilliant. Is what he was getting at, and that no, it was basic. It was very standard.
I think it was probably brilliant if you've never seen another movie before.
Maybe.
Hmm.
Gosh, but
I thought that
seriously,
was,
like you want to watch
For a
like
movie
great
with
camera
this
work.
budget, it's not amazing at all. It's nowhere near amazing.
Yeah.
This is, this would be good for maybe a fan film level production, not anywhere near like the biggest huge $1 million Star Wars film.
Yeah, and like if you want to see good camera work, yeah, check out the Kingsman fight or Witcher Blaviken. If you want to see fights that take up way more effort, if you're going to try and give any credit to a fight scene for effort put in, have a look at the hallway fight in Daredevil. Okay, it's a one take fight, right? That whole thing, brilliant. Okay, and
Great
so
fight.
and
Have you
like
seen,
there are so many examples.
Have you seen the old boy fight? That's the
I
one
was,
take in
I
the
was
hallway.
about to bring that up. Like that's
Is that the
genuine
Asian
take.
one? Like,
Which-
it's
yeah,
it's
the-
the Asian fight scene that
yeah.
it's in the. I
Yeah,
think I have seen that because
the
that's
green one.
crazy.
Long, long
I
hallway.
really like that one. I found
Chad.
that one very entertaining.
Chad, I have a question. Have you seen Mission Impossible Fallout?
I think I have.
Do you
but I don't
remember the
much of it.
bathroom fight? Bathroom fight at all?
No, not in detail. Not really.
Oh damn! I mean, I think like the throne room fight, as far as how it's like shot and edited, it's a lot more competent than something like the Taken 2 and 3. I don't think it's incredible the way that Daredevil's hallway fight was, but I don't see anything particularly wrong with how it was
But it's
like.
far better than this.
Yeah, the Daredevil one I was using
Yeah.
as a reference because it was a single
Sure.
shot, and
Sure.
and so the work needed to go into that to try and get that take done would have been.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm
Do you guys have time to watch this Dark Jedi fan film?
It's 5 minutes.
Sure, yeah.
Well,
And then,
before we just move on from that one, I really think he needs to rename the name of that movie to "The Throne Room Fight Scenes Camera Work is Passable." That I think that's
a good
what he was
summary, yeah.
able to establish, and that's the purpose of that video, because that video did not critique the fight scene itself, the actual fighting. Like, he mentioned it twice, and he wasn't able to say a single positive thing about it, which is amazing.
When it comes to 8080 chat, you don't know what he's going to talk about with the edits. Because first one he talked about kendo, the next one he talked about like the higher meaning of the entire scene, like we kept joking about before, where it's like the ground or in the fight between Luke and Kylo, it's like where there's a little bit of red coming out, and he's like, oh, that represents the scarring on Kylo's soul, and it's like, I don't think it does.
Really,
And
he
just
said
kind of-
something like that?
Yeah.
Because that's
Sure did.
just
Sure did.
subjective garbage. Like, I really think And this is, look, AT, you're probably a really friendly, nice guy in person. This is nothing personal, okay? We're talking about your arguments here. And I think AT and people who have this same vein of logic, they honestly need to do some real world debate and learn what an argument is and qualify itself, because it seems like you could only make the video he made then by having presented it to no one, because that was not an argument. He qualified nothing. He was like, this camera work is brilliant, but he doesn't explain why. He explains that at the very most it was like, it was acceptable, that okay, it zoomed in
4 minutes. He spent 4 minutes like looking at shots, like counting them.
And it didn't establish much at all. And I think it wouldn't have taken much to just get someone who's willing to look at it with a critical eye and say, am I achieving what I'm saying the purpose of this video is, okay, in the content? Because like, wouldn't take too much of a person, to look at this critically and say, I'm sorry, you're missing the mark here quite a bit. You haven't addressed this or that or that. There was so much lacking in the substance of what he was trying to establish in that video that is rather astounding. And again, I'm not saying this as a personal attack. It's just that there wasn't real argumentation there. These people need to get into debate and figure out how to establish a proper chain of logic to establish their opinions here, because that was weak.
But we had a good time, didn't we, everyone?
We did. It was fun. It was fun.
Good time was had by all.
He tweeted something. You check it out.
Oh,
Really?
more than, like, if he wants to come in and just
looking at it
discuss
right now.
This will be the man to make sure my statements considering the Predator and Guard fight live up to realistic expectations. If they do not, I guess he has to impale me with one of his actual swords.
Oh, it's about Shadiversity. So, Shadiversity
It's
is
your channel,
actual sword.
Shad.
Boom.
I wouldn't impale you with a sword, sir. Don't worry. And the thing is, though, it's like, okay, his statements concerning the Guard fight, you didn't really critique the fight, though. And in fact, no, you did critique it. You said you made 2 comments saying why it was bad. You never mentioned a single thing why it was good. And so I didn't even need to do anything to try and defend your love for this, because you basically said yourself that the fight was bad without saying anything else positive.
No. AT chat. I love this guy's channel. Is so bad. He needs live streams regardless. If my opinions of what I enjoy are objective enough, Lamo, bunch of yokes. I guess they made sure to get some high-profile guy to dismantle my happiness. What the fuck are you on about? What is this?
So let me just read one of his tweets right here. It's him. It's him tweeting out.
Flag it.
Yes, he's tweeting out the stream from the other day, saying he's got a new one out today. Can't wait to flag it and see what happens. Pretty much.
Okay, this is getting far off
really?
hand.
Is he flagging crap? Wow, that's
false flagger.
I was saying nothing against you personally now, but mate, you are really showing yourself.
Hey, AT chat. Listen, at least Nat Jarbo had the decency to try to cover up what he did until that he was out getting boulders.
Trying to lie.
AT chat, no!
Look, okay, trying to be serious. If he is still watching, look, dude, this is not good. Look, come and have a conversation with us. Look, we're happy to have a conversation. We're happy to talk.
Does this guy sound like the type of guy who would want a
out
conversation?
of line.
Well, it's okay, because we've had people on here before that we disagreed with. We gave them plenty of leeway. We had a 5-hour chat with John.
Yeah, but he didn't try to false flag your videos.
He's a nice guy. He's a very unique guy. He wanted a safe space for fans of The Last Jedi in his...
No, it was a positive space. He references he wants a positive space, and that's why he deletes comments.
But I think Shadiversity was right on the money. This guy apparently can't take any level of critique. So
Oh,
obviously, he shows his videos to nobody, and now
he has to resort to saying that this channel is just trying to discredit his happiness.
Yeah,
And it's like,
so
that's not what we're trying to do.
He
You would know that if you would agree to
one
come
little
on.
round of critique. One little round of critique. Now he wants to start false flagging people. Okay.
But just this is not good. This is not cool. You just why do this?
Well, his
That's what
actions
happens-
are
that's
gonna
what
stay
happens.
like his actions will say volumes about his character,
Oh, yeah.
and is tweeting them publicly
Well, I
because
can.
most YouTube viewers and
okay,
the large
when-
majority know that false flagging is one of the dirtiest dog things.
Very
you can do.
dirty, and
people,
apparently his character is as bad as his argumentation. So
When people are upset, they can react pretty harshly, and I want to give this guy the benefit of the doubt of maybe he was just upset and this is just a knee-jerk reaction. I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I want to, but it's
Well, let's not focus on this anymore. I'll be happy to reach out to him tonight and say hello. But let's watch an actual fun, entertaining fight scene, or not. I don't know exactly what you guys thought of this. I thought it was fun to watch. It's very frenetic. It's very fast, and of course, it's German, so you know it's good quality. So let's go ahead, guys. You have any time? You have 5 minutes. You're good. Everyone cool?
100%.
yeah, good to go.
All right.
yeah.
So the thing that is working well is that it's fast paced, okay, and it's not camera sped up either. You can tell that they're actually moving, you know, with decent pace there. There was a lot of there was a lot of telegraphing in the first hits.
Someone put in the chat. If she breathes, she's a thought.
Oh, that
So,
one. I like that.
gonna go back to
now
the
I
beginning.
do see it. I do see it now.
Go on, what you're saying?
I'm just going back to the beginning because you'll see him lead in with his shoulder a lot, and so there's a lot of telegraphing here, and I'm not seeing a set guard position, and so what there's like, if we're on the same frame, what they're doing there, that's not an actual guard. They're just kind of holding them, and so
I did notice the lightsaber had a Kylo Ren cross hilt, but that's it. Like it's just a cross hilt. There's nothing actually ignited.
But the thing that is working, like I said before, is the speed in which they were executing the moves. And so if we just go back to the beginning, because it doesn't take long to go through the fight scene again. So see that wide swing there? That was a baseball bat right there. And so in a sword fight, that's such a big telegraph that what you do, you wouldn't block that hit because there's overswinging. You'd actually move back, let it pass, let him overswing, and then hit him on his open shoulder on the backside. And so this type of thing is a common thing you see in a lot of fight scenes. It does convey like intention, motion, and strength, but in terms of the proper form, not the best.
The one thing I do want to point out, even the story is very loose. Obviously the female is a Jedi, and this is her friend, and he's sort of lost his way. So she's obviously a bit more reluctant to attack. So I sort of say, okay, there's lots of opportunities for her to just stab him. It's like she doesn't take it. So I'm like, all right, that could be part of the story, could be part of her character. I can take that.
Obviously, we don't want to be too harsh on the films because it's just made by
See, that set of exchanges was better, okay? They were tighter, quicker movements, and it had a bit more complexity as well. And so he went back. And like she went to a side guard into a hanging guard, letting him pass over her to get onto the side. See, that's a good example of more complex choreography than just hit, especially with telegraph hit and the up and down thing. And so that's a good example of higher tier, better choreography than other exchanges that you can see. Finally, a force power.
And that was a good one too. I liked it.
I still think they should be using it far more often, but of course it is explained by them each doing a force block wall things preventing it.
Well, that's had to be explained outside of the films, and it's only in certain. But I'm not even sure that's still canon.
No, yeah, it's hard to know what is
still a good
canon and what isn't
explanation.
now. It's a great explanation. It works really well if they were consistent with it. And how good would it be if that was actually something that was trained? It's like, where if Rey if in the training tried to attack Luke and Luke just force throwing her everywhere, and it's like, you need to learn how to stop that, otherwise you're never going to win. It would work really well.
Yeah, like that's where he teaches her focus and control, and that's how she keeps up the.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a bit of a mix. Like there's some fun, movements there that look impressive, especially with some of the acrobatics. Some, of course, are too telegraphed and everything, but they bleed in well together because it's flowing, very naturally from one movement to another. And of course, it's done, even if movements are not technically sound, like in a real sword fight, if they're done with proficiency and they're done like so that they're not off balance, but their movement is very clean while doing it, it can still look really well. That's what we see in the Witcher fight scene in Blaviken. Okay, a lot of the movements are not technically sound, but they are still done proficiently and clearly, and so it can still look visually pleasing as a result. And so we see some of that here.
Yeah, my gripe here is her deciding to like elbow and sidekick him instead of just hitting him with her lightsaber.
Yeah,
I could maybe say that she doesn't want to kill him because, like, from what I can tell, like they used to be friends.
Right. That's what I was saying before. Like this is why I think this is happening. That's why I liked it, because obviously you just extend your arm and you just hit the guy, but she doesn't want to. So it's like, all right, there's a story reason for that. I like that.
Yes,
But then it's a little bit contradicted. It's a little bit contradicted there by the fact that she tried to just kill him there, or at least a shot that would have led to his death if he didn't move fast enough.
You're right, because those kicks, when she went to do that low kick when he was wide open and disarmed, she could have killed him instantly without a problem.
I meant, like, at that point, again, I would still go with the defense that she doesn't want to kill him. But when it comes to her stabbing the ground where he just was, it kind of makes me think, that's a little bit contradictory there,
agreed.
because that would be very damaging.
Yeah, so there is some really good stuff in this. I mean, like really good stuff. There's also some pretty bad, but it's not like the really good stuff helps elevate it, and it's easy to overlook the bad because some of the movements are very impressive. It's like, oh, that was cool, and so yeah, this fight scene is top tier. Like, not the best, but
I can tell you one thing right now. It has me far more gripped and intrigued than the throne room scene.
Yes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
there's kind of a sense of emotion, especially with the music. It makes it feel more tense, and sort of the way they're acting. She doesn't seem to want to hurt him, but they're kind of being forced into this fight because he's lost his way, kind of thing.
And the one thing I really liked was using his force power to get up really quickly. And the one thing I really didn't like was the spinning, which we also saw in the Battle of Blaviken, which...
yeah,
it's explained that witches can do that for a reason, but it's still sort of, wow, you're still leaning yourself into a opening. You're putting your back like to all this attack. You're like, what are you doing, Geralt? But that's how he's trained to do it. So
yeah, and you can't spin effectively.
Some of the force powers is that some of the effects look a little cheap, and it's cheap in the sense of, I know that this is a fan film, obviously, but I know what effect they've used, and it's one they've taken from a video co-pilot pack called Shockwave, and it is literally just one of the effects, and they've given a little tint, and they've gone boof, and it doesn't work as a force effect. What I would suggest, if anyone's interested in making a force effect, I would create an invisible ripple as it visibly shows a push, rather than this weird shockwave burst that they've used. Because I know when they've used it. Yeah, that's one of my gripes as a visual effects artist. I don't like the stock effects. It always gets me. I'm being reminded of, there's like this one shot in Clone Wars. I don't know if it's kind of old, so I don't know if it's technically a spoiler, but there's one character who gets shot by a blaster, and it's this. You see the hole it's created in his armor and in him, and it's like pretty impactful. You see the reaction on his face. That like, I kind of get the brutality of the blaster. Kind of reminds me of that.
You're saying the armor actually protected a stormtrooper?
No. Oh, so it was a clone, and the armor didn't protect him. It created it burnt a hole in him.
Okay.
It ripped right through the armor.
Yeah.
That armor is useless. My goodness.
Well,
Yeah.
I would say my explanation for the armor is it's not for protecting against blasters. It's purely in protection against things like elements. So, like for example, it's just to protect them from absolutely everything else other than blasters and lightsabers, obviously.
Wouldn't you think blasters would be the priority, though? Just saying.
But
Yeah, you
there's
think that
protects against blasters other than a lightsaber or
there is
chromium, whatever.
Durasteel. Durasteel is everywhere in Star Wars. That's what Mandalorian's armor is first made.
No, they're not made of Durasteel. They're made of
Beskar.
The first stuff is made out of Durasteel. He upgrades to Beskar.
Okay,
no,
but
Beskar
my problem. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Last Jedi, when Rose and Finn crash into the hangar on Crate, and the Resistance soldiers are like shooting at the ship that they're in, like their blasters aren't doing anything against the ship. So are we to believe that?
I would say that's more to do with the ships would be made of heavier, more defensible material. Where when it comes to armor has to be a lot more lightweight, and it has to be flexible, and it's used in much more thinner. It's a lot more thinner than you're going to get on a space. So it's not you can say it's a problem that the armor doesn't defend, but it's not a huge. I don't think it's a huge flaw within the media. We don't have anything in real life that properly protects against bullets. We have vest armor, but that's only useful for a first couple of shots, as far as I believe.
Oh no, it is pretty useful. The limitation we have is the weight of armor. If we could make the plates lighter, we would be making far more comprehensive armor than just the chest plates.
You also have to think
that
about
is what is implied with the Durasteel. Like, there are many shots in Star Wars that don't penetrate what looks to be steel, so we have to assume it's Durasteel. That isn't that thick in Star Wars all the time, and they could be making armor out of it like heaps.
The problem
is very rare.
The problem is that they just established that it doesn't do anything. If they had established that there had been a stormtrooper that got hit and then he was okay and he was like, "Oh, glad I had that armor," then it would make more sense. But every time that we see it,
that's more of a problem with episode 4. That I would say probably would have been better if they deflected it. But again, with things like you've got to make armor to fit lots of people, so it's going to be cheap. It's affordability, practicality of it being lightweight, and all these other things. Because I think the armor's made of
but you wouldn't
plasteel.
It's unreasonable.
Plastic
I'm not going to
metal.
accept any explanation. I'm not going to accept an explanation as to how the stormtrooper armor makes sense unless it's being mistreated by the story in the original trilogy. Because like, I came up with all sorts of ideas, or I've heard all sorts of fan theories about what it could be like. Oh, you get hit with a blaster and it incapacitates you, but it doesn't kill you.
Disperses the energy, which is dumb. That is such a dumb explanation.
It's dumb, yeah. And then like the idea that they have these helmets that if they actually are looking out through those, if they are actually looking out through the eyelets, they're really badly placed. And that's why you have so many scenes in A New Hope where there are stormtroopers running into walls and stuff and tripping over stuff in the background if you look closely enough. What I always thought was, oh, well, they have like a heads-up display or something. But the movies don't enumerate on what the fan theories want to cover, and they don't try to. And that's a problem with the writing. You can't really get around that.
I would just say that what I'm saying now is just purely headcanon, and it's just kind of what I would make as my own explanation. But I would say, yeah, it is a fault of the original film for not taking these into account. But then I don't exactly blame them, as there's more things. George Lucas never thought this was going to create a giant franchise where questions like these would be raised. He thought, okay, we need to, someone gets shot, they obviously go down, and that's the logical consistency that we need to go for in a film. Because if you saw someone get shot and they just kind of kept on walking like it was nothing, then it would have been an inconsistency to the audience, because when you see something happen on screen, you have an expected reaction.
Thank you, Mango, for the super
Yeah,
chat.
but it's
I'm going to just read this one out. Recommendation for lightsaber battles, Santa Unleashed by Dillian Gu, and it's animated too. I'll be happy to check that out. Thank you very much for the suggestion. Go ahead, Glib.
Oh, I was just going to say that if you introduce armor, then you're introducing the implication that there's a reason to wear it as opposed to not wearing it. But if the end result is both sides fall down,
they're wearing it is just visual reasons for the story anyway.
Right. But what I'm saying is that you have the Mandalorian. He has a upgrade path. Like it could be a video game where he's going from one armor set to a better armor set that has better qualities to it. They give him vulnerability, and then they also give him a level of protection, which is what the point of armor is in the first place. So realistically, if the Stormtrooper armor, if it didn't really work, nobody would wear it. They would just run around in different kinds of uniforms. But then you need the aesthetic to be intimidating. So you have to come up with a way, and they just didn't come up with it. And that's a flaw. So like, I don't want to, I love these movies, but I don't want to excuse that as a clear lack of foresight, like what you were saying.
Yeah, I don't find any problem with it. I think just.
Well, the film is actually almost over, so if you want to watch the last few seconds. Okay.
Yep.
Bleeds once you go to the dark side. That's why it turns red.
No,
that's
it's
interesting.
damaged.
Hang
it's
on.
not bleeding specific. So I would say
that's the first. Like, I'm not sure if that's canon.
What?
Like,
no,
the lightsabers are red because of the dark side influence from the Jedi specifically.
So I'm referencing. Let me reference something, because I'm referencing a canon source. So
but which canon are you talking about?
Legend. I said Legends. It used to be there were synthetic crystals. However, in canon, it is a Jedi crystal which has been tainted by the dark side and been damaged, and that was made by the Ahsoka novel that came out a couple years back. That was supposed to try and bridge Clone Wars and Rebels, and that's the more commonly accepted. And the reason why Ahsoka's lightsabers are white in Rebels is because they've been pure. There used to be damaged dark side crystals that were then purified by Ahsoka using the Force to make them light again.
That's because I haven't heard that explanation before. But okay, if they're consistent with that can work fine. I feel red always, because I would want a red lightsaber. I'm just saying, if I was a Jedi, I was like, I just want red. It's like,
just a cool. No, but that's the dark side, Shad. You can't go there.
Oh, screw that. That's an unfair bias against the color red.
It's cool.
Okay?
That's that. The Swordmaster
in the
trainer
Jedi
over
temple.
there.
Like Shad's just in the Jedi temple, and it's like someone just kind of walks over. It's like, hey, why is your lightsaber red? It's like, oh, it's cool, but it's evil. It's like, I like the color red.
From what I've heard, you turn to the dark side the moment you think Rey's a Mary Sue. That instantly turns your lightsaber.
Well, then I'll have a red one. That's awesome.
I want a gray lightsaber because I turned to the board side.
Okay. Well, that's all we have for tonight, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And, of course, thanks to Shad for showing up and sitting through this rather slow and not too informative video on the criticisms.
It's not EFAP, so it's a lot faster than that.
Yeah, don't worry.
Short man bad.
Hey, it was a pleasure to come on, guys. It was a lot.
4 hours is short.
We love your input. We really appreciated all your insight into fighting and swords, of course. That we couldn't have gotten as far as we did with you, or without you, rather. I'm glad that Southpaw jumped in. We'd like to always have you, and we're glad that you did. And
I'm always glad to be here, and it was really nice to meet you, Shad. Finally.
Hey, likewise, mate. Likewise.
And of course, that bonus was just for fun. The last part of the video, I really thought that was a fun little video that a bunch of fans made. That made me feel better after watching the previous video.
Yeah, well, it is very true. Fans are making better Star Wars than Disney at the moment, by far.
Oh yeah, by far. And what we heard so far, those of you in the chat at the moment, you're the lucky ones, because you actually got to see this video before apparently it goes down by false flagging due to AT-AT.
Exactly. So you get to see it, even though everybody else is.
Thanks, AT-AT.
Well, I will be reaching out.
By the way,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shad. How did your surgeries go, by the way?
So far, so good. And so the first week was hellish, like all hell was rough as. And then it took another week to be able to feel like I could get back to things. And so far, positive signs as a result. Things are looking good. I have another.
Good.
I'm booked in for another surgery, which will be a nose one. Won't be as bad as the throat, which is good. And hopefully that'll also improve things. So yeah.
Oh, so you've only
Appreciate
done
it.
one of the surgeries, not both.
Yeah, not both.
Okay, I gotcha. I gotcha.
But yeah, thanks for asking, mate. Yeah, things are going well.
Oh, no problem at all.
Check out that dual scene, Shad, and get back to me and tell me what you
Yeah.
think about it.
I'll certainly do that.
Yeah, the classics are always amazing. But anyway, we gotta go. I really wish we could stay longer, but we have time and things to do and work tomorrow and all that good stuff. So thanks again for everyone joining. Thank you again for all the super chats, all my Smudcast crew, and of course special guest Shad. Really appreciate it, guys. Have yourself a great evening.